WESWES show.
A lot of people wait when they come on, especially if they haven't been on the podcast before.
Yeah.
Like they get, I don't know about the mics. It's like something that's foreign, like they're scared of it and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
even guys like recording artists like that. Like I always think that, you know, they've probably seen these mics before and know how to use it and that, but not for talking.
Yeah.
and that. But you've been on a few podcasts now, eh?
Not as many as people think.
Nah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I've done all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it's nothing major.
Yeah. How do you find them? Do you listen to much?
No, I don't actually. I don't really listen to podcasts because that's just not my thing. Plus, a whole bunch of podcasts, you know, guys wanking on about dumb shit that I don't care about. So, you know, or yeah, you know, the whole, you know, why start a podcast, you know, or why go to therapy when you can start a podcast, and you're just like, it's like, I can understand why guys do podcasts, you know, the whole, you know, kind of hang out with mates, but at the same time, it's a circle jerk.
Yeah.
Like you don't have an objective person to really kind of give you proper feedback, so it becomes an echo chamber a lot of times. So you'll see, especially if, you know, podcasts with guys, you'll see misogyny and homophobia and transphobia just, you know, kind of supported because, you know, they don't have an objective person to tell them that there's like, hey mate, that's not on, man, like, you know. So yeah, so that's why I don't really listen to that stuff, you know. Even when I'm on them, I don't listen to them because I already know what I'm talking about because I've done media stuff for so long. I know exactly what I'm going to be saying most of the time, or at least the crux of it. But other than that, it's just like, I don't even need to listen to myself say the same thing I've been saying all these years. So, but like, you know, if it can help others, then sweet, that's cool, you know.
Yeah.
Hopefully people can learn from my story and learn from my experiences, and hopefully inspire them on their journeys, whatever that may be. You know, so yeah, so that's why I don't mind doing this stuff, as long as it's good people. So luckily you're good people. So, you know, like it was like one of those other podcasts that I talk about, you know, that I mentioned, like in terms of that kind of echo chamber, misogynistic space. I'm like, I would be like, nah. But yeah, if it's people I know or people I can trust, then I'll say yeah. But you know, I'm not just going to do any podcast, you know. So yeah.
Thanks, Michel. I'm glad that you can trust me to come in there. But thanks for coming back, man. Because like you said last time you came, it was episode 30.
Yeah,
and
you're like what, episode 160 something?
This will be 168.
Yeah, so that's that's quite a long time between drinks, and so much has happened. We had a pandemic.
That's right. That's right.
Know, we had lockdowns and all of that stuff. So
yeah, that's right. And now we're on video because I remember in the beginning it took ages for us to get on video. Like I never wanted to be on video because I thought, because for me podcast is audio, you know, and I just love the audio, and I knew people were doing the video on that, but I never wanted to do a video because I was camera shy. I am still camera shy in that, like, but there came a time when, you know, to get out more, you know, use the platform called YouTube. You got to get on there because it's not good to put like a screensaver and have the lines come out when you're just talking, you know. So yeah, so that was a whole big thing for us to move over to video. But I'm glad you're back and on the video, so we can do this. But coming back to what you're saying about the echo chamber and the podcast thing, that's very interesting because I always found that with social media.
Yeah.
Because, you know, with the algorithms and that, you only see what you like. So you only see what you like for everything else. You never get the objective view.
Yeah.
Especially if you're political, if you're people into political stuff, and, you know, they only see what they want to see. Yeah. You know, and it gets like that. But yeah, I never thought of that with the podcast. But I guess that is true because those podcasts with those certain subjects, they'll go into the algorithm and you know, and people that know what they know and don't see what they don't know, well, those podcasts will come to them and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like, you know, a lot of it is, you know, around the like screwed up, I guess, views of masculinity. You know, like I hate all of those kind of that kind of rhetoric, because what it really shows is that, you know, the patriarchy and male dominance has been the norm for so long. And, you know, that there's that saying where to those accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. And so male dominance has been the norm for so long that now that there's some kind of equitable power sharing, and it's not even like equitable, it's like now that there's a little bit of power being shifted away from the male dominant spaces and becoming more feminine, or even like, you know, diverse, queer, you know, gender stuff, then the guys are having a absolute hissy fit. And so they feel like, oh, you can't be a man in this day and age. And so then that becomes that circle jerk of like these guys trying to be like, you know, trying to uphold that same kind of toxic masculinity, which also, funnily enough, I also think that kind of mindset attributes to the high suicide rates in terms of that whole loss of manhood, you know. And you know, you have all these guys trying to be tough, trying to be like, it's like, fuck off. Like I you know, I'm not like the most butch dude, like, you know, and you know, I'm pretty emotional. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm very passionate, and that's because I'm passionate as an artist. And you know, when people think about art, and you know, I guess the skills that you need to be an artist, one skill I believe that people don't often overlook that artists should have is the skill of empathy. Because empathy is how you understand people, how you understand the world around you. And being able to understand the people and the world around you and life itself and just your surroundings allows you to understand it, to filter it out through your art. And so a lot of these guys kind of lack empathy because it's all about them. It's all about, you know, oh, no, like, oh, I can't be a man in this day and age. Because you can be a man, you just can't be an asshole. Like, you're just looking for an excuse to be an asshole and, you know, continue to be an asshole because you've been allowed to be an asshole for so long and get away with it. Now people ain't gonna let that slide. Yeah. And so that feeling, you know, of loss of power, which is what it is, that loss of power they used to have where they were able to get away with things, has made all of these men feel like they're being attacked, that they can't be men anymore. And so that's why yeah, I'm very we're getting real heavy, like in the beginning of this podcast. I haven't even talked about my shit, but that's kind of how I see those kinds of spaces a lot of the times. And I'm just like, I'm always shaking my head like, come on guys, you know, don't you understand like that? And so, and I guess that power of empathy I have is how I kind of notice those little things. But like, why do these guys kind of uphold those kind of toxic masculine traits, you know, in those spaces? And it's like, okay, you know, and then so I use the empathy I have as an artist to kind of try and understand a little of like what is the underlying feeling for those emotions they have. And it's like, man, feel those emotions. You know?
But you know, because if you're that guy, and because you would feel attacked. Yeah. If you look around the world and you see all these things happening that's different in society, like the push for the diversity or for women's rights and all that kind of stuff, of course you're gonna feel sort of attacked there. Like, this wasn't the way it was back when I was young.
Yeah, exactly. You hear it all the time. It's like, oh, you know, back in my day, we weren't so PC. Yeah. It was like, yeah, you were able to get away with that. Yeah. Now people are smarter. Now people are more empathetic. Now people are able to live in their truth, right? So your old behaviors, your old habits don't fly anymore because the world has changed. And so, yeah, so that's why you barely see me on podcasts and stuff. And I'm very selective again, because my time, my energy, I'm not going to waste it on dumbasses. So, like as I said, luckily for you, you're not a dumbass. So that's why I'm here again after episode 30. So the last time I was here. So yeah.
Now, because you know, I've always been a guy to like talking to other people. Like I don't care who it is. Like I can talk to anybody, and I feel like this podcast just showcases. Well, not probably showcase. Oh, it does automatically. Like it does naturally. But for me, my agenda is just to talk to people. Yeah. And for me, it's like practicing the art of conversation. Because for me, a podcast, like, I don't like those podcasts that. Oh, this is my opinion, my own opinion. I don't like the podcasts that it's like an interview.
Yeah.
That question after question, and because to me it sounds like a TV show or radio.
Yeah.
Whereas podcast needs to be different. For me, it needs to be different. It can't, because if it was a radio show, I may as well just listen to talkback, you know. And you know how you talk about being an artist. Like, I think any kind of art that's out there, that, because we've got all these different mediums. I think podcast is a new medium. It should be something new.
Yeah.
It should be a long form conversation, because you're not going to get that anywhere else. You're not going to get a long form conversation on TV or radio, because they don't only give you that time.
Yeah.
And if you can talk to someone for 3 hours, because a lot of the time, a lot of episodes we have, like, it goes for 3 hours. I think your last one was 3 hours when you first came. But see, that was an unplanned, unscripted conversation. We just started somewhere and ended up something else. Of course, we had you here. We know you're a wrestler. We know you're into comics. We know you're into Tekken. So we had those 3 subjects, but we didn't know where we were going to talk about it. We just we'll just start from, just like we're doing now.
Yeah.
We started with, I don't know how we started with this.
I think we were talking about like why I was so selective about being on podcasts and why I don't listen to them. So
all that just organically turns into something where people can get a real insight of what we're talking about.
And like, you know, if I have kind of offended some of those masculine bros, cry about it in your own podcast. I don't give a fuck.
But I like what you said about the empathy part or different points of view, because as an artist, you're right. You need to express it. Otherwise, you're going to express one way.
You need to know the world around you in order to be able to reflect it in your art, and that's the thing. And that's what I've kind of learned over the years, is just, like, it's not just empathy with like understanding other people's emotions. It's empathy, opening yourself up to the world around you and understanding the world a little better to be able to reflect it in your artwork. So it's just one of those things that I kind of came across in my own kind of journey as an artist. Yeah. And I felt like, people don't understand how huge empathy is as a skill for an artist. And
you do see them out there, like Andrew Tate and
those
kind of guys.
Who just I was just like, man, you come and say that to some of our Samoan women, they're gonna fucking candle slap the taste out of your mouth, just that whole women should be subservient. I was like, fuck, again, it's that loss of power, that feeling of loss of power. And when people start losing power, they start panicking because they were so used to a certain way of life, and to have that kind of slowly, not just dramatically taken away from them, but slowly taken away from them, it feels like the world's crumbling under their feet, and it's like,
because they put 2 and 2 together and in their own way, and whatever they put together, they paint this picture, and he's right. He's right. I had the same problem the other day with someone at work or something. Something happened to me. But it might be in the bigger picture, so minuscule. Yeah, doesn't even matter.
Yeah, and like and that kind of talk also is ripe for kind of teenage boys navigating that awkward space. Yeah, right. Like there's that awkwardness, that it was like disenfranchisement, where you realize the world isn't what you deemed it to be, and you kind of look for some kind of solace, and that feeling of disenfranchisement kind of also comes through with these podcasts. And so they kind of like, I understand this guy, and then they fall for that whole rhetoric, and then they take that out into the real world, and it becomes problematic, and then they kind of be like, what that's not, like they don't understand why they're getting punished for their dumbassery, because they didn't realize that isn't how the world works. This is so that kind of stuff. But I think that's why social media and these online spaces, and the fact that anyone can have a voice in these spaces, is a good thing. But again, double-edged sword. Anyone can have a voice, and that includes hateful, racist, homophobic, misogynistic voices. And so it's a hard road to navigate, and especially if you're, a young person kind of going through that mixture of in between, childhood and adulthood and puberty and stuff, you've got those conflicted feelings, and then sometimes you'll find yourself online in a space that, you know, isn't exactly a great space, but, you know, you kind of somehow connect with what they're saying.
And then sometimes that's really scary, because I just had a conversation at lunch with a work colleague today, and he was talking about how, you know, his daughter is just on her phone, like, or locked in the room on her phone, like, all day. She can't be there all day. So they do these things, parent things, like, oh, we're gonna take your phone away, and then it's like, oh, now what? Like, she's like, okay, now what I'm gonna do?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, right, true. Yeah, here's your phone back.
Yeah. So I think that kind of stuff, you know, those online spaces and the amplification of any voice, in all voices, and like that's part of free speech. But at the same time, free speech doesn't mean free of consequences. You know, you can't, you know, you can be hateful in online and stuff, but beware, there will be consequences for that. You know, so. Free speech doesn't mean free of consequences, and I think a lot of people kind of think that's what free speech is. Like you're free to say whatever you want without consequence. It's like you're free to say whatever you want, but you know someone might punch you in the face for it. Like then, you know, like, oh, it's free speech because but what you said was hateful as fuck. Yeah. So you know, so someone dicked you because you're a dumbass. So you know, so yeah.
So how's your journey been through that with the seeing the world and trying to gather like experiences, right, to help with your artwork?
Yeah,
like that's what we were trying to explain before.
Yeah, see, like I've like this past year or so, you know, has been super crazy in terms of the work I've been doing and the experiences I've had. And you know, when I do get some good money as an artist, you know, I upgrade, you know, my workstation stuff again, like kind of reinvesting back into the business. But also at the same time, I try and spend money on experiences. Again, you know, the experiences that you have, again, influence and inform your choices as an artist. Gives you, again, better understanding of the world around you. And so, like, you know, after pretty much the first 6 months of this year, I was working solely on one project, which was a documentary film. I was providing artwork, which I think still no word on the release date, but it was going to be released through Universal Pictures.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so that was quite a hard slog, getting through all of that in 6 months, and then. Luckily the pay was really good, which is why I stuck with it. And, you know, paid for my car and paid for my US trip in July kind of thing. So with July, you know, I was just like, it's been a few years, obviously, with the COVID and stuff. It's been a few years since I've been back to San Diego Comic-Con. So you know, this year, I think with the restrictions,
because I remember you talking about it last time you were here at the Comic-Con. You've been going every year. It's been on. Just the COVID has been.
Yeah, no. So obviously they haven't had it. Yeah. And this year was the first kind of full blown San Diego Comic-Con. But yeah, I think I would go every like 2 years. And so I had planned to go in 2020, but then obviously COVID. And so funnily enough, the money I kind of had to spend on the travel that year. Obviously, I couldn't travel, so what did I do with the money? I ended up building a studio at home because I was like, okay, if we go into further lockdowns, I need to kind of future-proof my workspace and make sure that I have somewhere to work from if we go into further lockdowns.
I saw an Instagram post with your... Was it the bed that turned into like a gaming thing?
Yeah.
Was that the money went on? That's your new studio.
Yeah, and
that's me.
You know, it's like a cabin by the garage and stuff. So, like, you know, I bought the cabin. I didn't hire it. I bought it because I was just like, funny enough, I don't have like a credit score or anything. I've never kind of used HP on anything. So I like just buying stuff outright rather than kind of the drag of HP. The only thing that I'm paying like monthly is my mobile phone. And that's tied into phone bill. So
and your streaming services, come on.
yeah. So I'm just like, that's fine. But that's like the only thing that I've got on like HP. Like, and I've been very fortunate that like pretty much everything I buy outright. Even my car, I just bought it. Like it was like I don't want to go into finance. Let's just buy it outright. So I just bought a cabin and I decked it out, with the help of my brother, and and that's if you follow my socials and you see the workspace I've got, that's what I created in lockdown and set up, and have been fine tuning it since 2020. And it's in a pretty good spot at the moment, but there's always like times where I'm like, I could probably improve this by grabbing this gadget and putting it here, and but there'll be times where I'll improve it and or upgrade bits and pieces just to think. But that all came from lockdowns, and then the good thing is investing that money I would have spent traveling into the business and into my workspace meant that I made even more money.
Yeah, that's right.
So
it's very refreshing when people hear about people, or especially me when I talk to people, but that inspires me, like people that have invested in themselves.
Yeah,
that develop skills that they can use to to be on their own, to start their own business, or and anything that comes in goes back into the person, back in investing in yourself, and that's exactly what you've done.
Yeah, and so it's just been a real crazy thing where I was just like, God, the decision I made, ended up being the absolute best one I could make in that time, in that period of uncertainty, right? Like no one knew how long the COVID stuff was going to happen, how many lockdowns we were going to go into, how long those lockdowns were going to go to. So yeah, it just ended up being the absolute best decision I made. Now when I wake up, I can't help but create, because I've created a space that emanates that creative energy, and just being surrounded by all the stuff I love. I just want to do the stuff I love when I wake up. So yeah, it's a dope workspace. Like
I can see that. See that.
People are just like, what? It's like, yep, that's me, just making it fun. Really.
It still amazes me how you can juggle to me, there's your three passions, like building your workspace, but also having wrestling, and then your comic book, and then and now you're working for Disney.
Yeah.
Just all these things, man. Like to me, you're a busy man.
Yeah.
I don't know how you got. Like to me, those three things are someone's part time, someone's hobby. But you're doing that like all day, every day.
Obviously the comics and the story artist stuff with Disney, that's the main focus. Gaming, I don't do as much just because I'm so busy.
And that's one that can drop off.
And the wrestling, that's like once a month and a half. Like, so, I don't need to commit too much time to that, but I still do it, and it still hurts. But, pretty much, I arrived from LA a couple of weeks ago, and then the following day I was wrestling and became New Zealand Tag Team Champion again. So, it's just what I do. Like that's, people often think that it's like, oh, how do you juggle everything? I was like, oh, I don't really. I just do things when I feel like it. That's how I roll. Like that's how I've always been. I ride the wave. If something comes my way, and I don't try and fight it, I don't try and make it bend to my will. I'm like, okay, how can I take this? How can I ride with it and make it work for me? And so that kind of lackadaisical, nonchalant approach allows me to navigate tricky situations like COVID and lockdowns and stuff, and identify what I need to do to turn that situation into a positive. How can I make that work for me? So how do I juggle it? I don't. I just do it when I feel like it. That's the truth. There's like some people be like, you don't have a routine. It's like, yeah, because I'm not anal like that. Like it's like,
and I think what you're doing, your profession itself, like, if anything, COVID has taught everyone around the world, the lockdowns is that people can actually work from home.
Yeah.
And people don't have to work 9 to 5 go to a place to work 9 to 5. And it brings up all these questions about now they're testing productivity. Is the company still productive if you work from home? And they're testing that right now. But for me, because I'm getting sick of my job, like, and lockdowns was brilliant. Working from home was brilliant, and I was like, yeah, And then that led to me thinking, man, I wish I did a job where I could actually work from home,
Yeah.
So you're perfect. You're a perfect example of that.
Yeah, and like again, like that's one of the positives to have come out of the COVID situation outside of the positive COVID test, but it was that whole remote working aspect and companies figuring out ways to allow their workers to work from home, and all the new technologies that came along with it, and Zoom and whatnot. And so dealing with like Disney and stuff, it's pretty much daily Zooms.
Yeah.
And when I had a meeting with them in July in LA, they were like, yeah, we were thinking, initially maybe you could be in LA for 5-6 weeks. But they're like, but I reckon we should be able to organize stuff to allow you to work from New Zealand. And I was like, hell yeah, sign me up. Like, if I could do that, that would be awesome, because LA is a shithole. Like, I hate LA. And so being able to work from home and here in Aotearoa, like, I was like, that's the perfect situation for me, because, I would still be able to do my community work, my school visits and stuff,
Exactly.
And so it's been really great, and Disney have made quite a few accommodations to allow me to do that. So
did they pay for power? Your power bill?
No, but like
bill?
they pay me well enough that that's like, no, that's, to be honest, like it's surreal to be in a space as an artist where you're comfortable. Like you're so used to like that grind. And always trying to make sure, okay, I gotta make sure I get some work for next month so I can have some money for bills and stuff. Like, the Disney stuff, like, not only is it amazing to work on, like, I absolutely love the work, the compensation is really good. And the work-life balance is really good.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, is this what it's like to not have to worry too much?
Yeah. Stress-free, because that's the whole biggest part of the whole concept of working from home now. Like, I think companies are trying to cut stress off their workers and that. And I think you're an extreme example of what they can do. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like, thanks to the unions, the Animation Guild, they've created a work atmosphere that's good for the animators, for the animation industry. And obviously, they're working for even better conditions, but like, I'm like amazed at what we've been able to do and what we are able to get, because essentially I can only work 40 hours max a week, and maximum 8 hours a day, and I've been told that you can't work beyond those hours, or like, you can work beyond those hours, you just won't get paid for them. And so they encourage you not to overwork. And luckily for me, those hours like are enough for me to be able to do the work I need to do and complete it and all that stuff. And so to be well compensated and kind of understand that I have a guaranteed 40 hours a week, like with like this great pay, like from Disney, like, and then this also, because 40 hours, the work-life balance, I have time to spend with friends and family. Like, that wasn't the case as a normal freelancer, because as a normal freelancer, you're always on the grind. You're always trying to find the next project so that you could get paid, and kind of try and create a flow on of projects so you get a steady income, monthly income. So to kind of have a steady monthly income, and not worry about chasing projects. It's really interesting, and I'm grateful for it. Like, I absolutely love it, but like, it's also weird, because you're so used to not having that reassurance
next minute,
that certainty, like that kind of certainty. Like, I'm like, they're like, yeah, next week, the studio's closed, but you'll be paid, time off with pay. So like, put that into your timesheet. I'm like, Sweet, awesome. So it's interesting to be in that space, as I said. Like it's weird, but like I'm so grateful to kind of not worry about the usual grind, you know.
Yeah, because I remember because at my work we work 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, and just and during lockdown, you know, we could use those 8 hours all day.
Yeah.
So, because to me personally, I'm a morning person.
Yeah.
So my brain is switched on from morning to about 2 o'clock, and then nothing after 2 o'clock. You know, so I'm sort of my productivity goes down after 2, but then for some reason after 6, 7, my brain clicks on again, and I'm back into work mode.
Yeah.
You know, so during lockdown, like, yeah, I just rested when my brain turned off. But when at night, I found myself working all the way to midnight.
Yeah.
And then I did more hours, but got heaps done.
Yeah.
So to me, the 9 to 5 at work.
Yeah, no, yeah, like it's
bullshit.
Yeah, sometimes you'll be like, you know, I'm going to take Monday off, and then I'll do 4 hours on Saturday, 4 hours on Sunday. Like,
yeah,
and
exactly.
that covers
that
it.
flexibility is, I think, makes people less stressed.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't have to be one block. You can work in parts. So that that kind of autonomy about the way you work those hours is awesome. And yeah, like it's just like that work-life balance that's so integral. And like I catch up with people and they'll look at me like, dude, you look so happy. Like, yeah, it's like good work, good job, like good hours. Like, you know, I still have time to hang out with the peeps. Like, so it's it's a really great situation I've managed to find myself in, working with the Disney Animation Studios.
I know you can't talk about what you're working on, details about whatever you're working on, but when you were in LA, did you, speaking about the work kind of life in LA, were you there long enough to see how Disney worked, like in the offices there, and are they leaning towards more flexibility and hours?
Working across
the board,
the LA based people, they have cubicles or offices in the building, but they don't have to be in those buildings every single day for the whole day. So there is still flexibility in that space as long as you're getting the work done. They don't mind where you do it, you know, whether in the office or away.
It seems like that's going to be the next how people going to work from now on. I know my work's old school, but the way things are going, it looks like.
Yeah. So you know, obviously the kind of the head people of like the director, head of story, and producers and stuff, they are usually in the building every day, just trying to, you know, sort things out. But then, even then, they don't necessarily have to be there the whole day, because usually, you know, we'll have Zooms and they're back home and on the Zoom. So like, okay, cool. They don't have to be in the office. In terms of like the building itself, like it's an amazing building, and the vibe is so good. Like, just being in that space, there's a, like, you know, people would probably use the word energy, but I'd probably use the word synergy, because it's a collective energy that you feel. Like everyone in that building is telling stories, or trying their best to tell the best stories within their abilities, and so that energy that you walk into as a storyteller, like you're like, I'm home. Like this is my shit. Like this is the stuff I love. This is the stuff I do, and so that's what I felt being in that space. Just like, we're all storytellers here. We're all trying to tell the best story we can, and that's the coolest. And so it was such a great experience, and you know, the walls are lined with art from, you know, Disney projects from the over the 100 years they've been around, and you know, one of the walls had like original artwork from Snow White and like Fantasia and stuff, and I was just like, oh shit, this is cool. And like even the security guards were like super friendly. Like everyone in that building was so friendly, so welcoming, and the space is kind of open. So if you're an employee and you know, there's signs around saying restricted area, you know, productions and project progress kind of thing. And I saw those signs and went, okay, just stay away from them. And then when they took me on the tour of the building, they were like, oh, never mind those signs. As an employee, you can actually go in and see what these guys are working on. Like there are areas where there's productions working in, but like in general, like everyone can kind of come into that space and see what others are working on, as well. So
is that thinking around that, like, to inspire, because we're all storytellers together?
Yeah, I think it's like inspiration, but also maybe like new eyes, fresh eyes, may kind of like solve a problem you guys have been thinking about for like 2 days, and then someone kind of comes, hey, and they're like, yes, that's So I think that's what is. There's that collective kind of energy where everyone's like, okay, what's the story we're trying to tell, and how is the best way to tell that? And so that's what I love about being in that space, is that I actually find myself growing an experience as a storyteller in that space, in this job, because again, everyone is trying to think, what's best for the story. Everyone's in service of the story. It's not necessarily about the art style or anything. It's about the story, And so I'm like, yeah, I'm all about that. That's my key kind of objective, is to tell a story. And so so I'm absolutely loving the space.
Yeah. So does that transfer to you, like, in terms of like getting your own projects done, like thinking about, man, I could actually do this now, like this energy, the synergy of energy that's come into me from my experience at the Disney building, like I can actually do my own, like on the side, like some kind of thing, my own projects.
Yeah, well, definitely the experience, however long it lasts, with Disney, I've definitely learned a lot in terms of like how their processes on how they kind of get things done, how like the animation kind of system works, the industry works a little as well. And like the director said to me, he's like, yeah, man, I can't wait till to see your portfolio at the end of this, because he's like, yeah, you'll be able to work for like DreamWorks or Sony and all the other kind of animation studios. And I was like, and funnily enough, I'm a comic book artist. Like that was my thing. And so people will be like, man, that Disney job must be a dream job. Must be a dream job. I'm like, no, it isn't. It wasn't. It wasn't a dream job, to be honest. It wasn't, because I dreamed about drawing comics. My dream jobs were drawing for Marvel and DC comics.
Would that lead to that though?
Well, I never factored in that my comic work could lead into animation, or storyboards in that, for that matter. And I have done storyboards in the past, but nothing major. There's some adverts here and there, in a short film, Liliu, the Samoan short film from J. Tomichi. So I did some storyboards for that. I didn't do the whole film, but I did like kind of first act. So that was my experience as a storyboard artist. And so I kind of laughed at this kind of dream job. Was to me, it was more like a dream opportunity, like that kind of presented itself. And I was like, I am not going to turn that down. Yeah. Like I can learn so much from being in this space, and that's kind of what I wanted to. I was like, okay, I knew it would pay well, but I wanted to grow as an artist from that. It's like, okay, what can I get out of this? It's like, how can I grow as an artist in this space? And so, yeah, I've found that growth, and it's been pretty surreal. Kind of, again, like it's like I think I know it's a big thing, but you'd never understand how big a thing it is until you see it through the eyes of others, because you're so ingrained in the work that it just becomes normal.
Right.
Like, right? Yeah. Like, it's like, I just work for Disney, But like to everyone else, they're like, oh, fuck, you work for Disney. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I do. Like, yeah, I do. Like, So, sometimes that,
So what do you think that would dilute the whole experience if it becomes a grind?
Well, obviously that's, luckily for me, with drawing and art and stuff, like sometimes you'll find moments where it feels like a grind, and maybe sometimes creative block creeps in. But I always kind of, it never really hangs around for too long for me, because I have other things to help distract my creative mind. I have other ways to be creative. So I can always kind of swap out. Like if I feel like drawing, I could just, play some video games or do some wrestling kind of thing. So like I'm at least doing something creative.
Yeah.
And then I can come back to drawing with a renewed vigor and energy. And also like, if some of those doubts and stuff set in, I'm always like, dude, you get to draw for a living. Like there's a million worse ways to make money than drawing, right? So like, suck it up and enjoy it. Like, it's hard work for sure, but like when you really kind of put it into context, you realize how fortunate you are to be doing what you love and make money from, so it's an interesting time to kind of be an artist for me. Like this is as I said, like surreal and stuff. Like and sometimes I forget like how major a thing it is. Like the interview and stuff. Like I was just chilling with the reporter in the cafe on Thursday, and then it released on Saturday, and then everyone's just blowing it up. I'm like, oh, I guess it is a big thing. Like I guess it is a big thing for people. They're like, oh shit, So it's but like I'm grateful for it. I'm always grateful for the support I do get. Because being an artist is usually a long, winding, lonely road. And so anyone that supports what I do, anyone that actually gives me opportunities, like the guys at Disney, like the way I got hired is not the usual way you get hired by
Tell
Disney.
us about it.
So I was told that Disney don't really look outside of the animation industry to work in the studios.
Oh, so you're the first then?
Oh, I'm probably not the first, but like they're hesitant to hire people who don't have animation experience. It's Disney, of course. Like that's the top. Like you got to be able to work into that. So, I had applied for a job last year for Disney that popped up in September, and
how did that come? Just online?
I just remember people like sharing it. I'm like, I might as well put my hat in the ring. Like again,
I know who's a drawer.
Yeah, there's like story artists. I'm like, I am not a story artist, but I'm still gonna send it through because while most people will say, oh, what's the worst that could happen? In my mind, I was like, fuck it, what's the best that could happen? Look at me now. This is what the best could happen. This is the best that could happen. But yeah, that's kind of my attitude. It's like, what's the best that can happen? Whenever I do something risky or out the gate, I'm just like, what's the best that can happen? And that totally changes the way you see things.
Especially when you haven't done animation before, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. It's just, so I applied for the job, and then I didn't get it. I got an email in June, so like almost a year since I applied, and I got an email in June saying, "Hey, sorry, we want some other artists, but we do like your stuff. So maybe if we find something that's right for you, we can hit you up if that's okay." I'm like, "Shit, yeah, like do it, hit me up if you need me," because I'm like, that's not a no. That's like sorry, but maybe.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm like, holy shit, like, that's a chance. Like, for me, that was a chance. And at the same time, like November last year, I applied for the DC Comics Milestone Initiative, which was a program designed for Black and minority comic creators to have an opportunity to create work for DC Comics. And so I saw that popped up, and I was like, "Fuck it! Like, what's the best that can happen?" So I did my 3 pages based off the script that they supplied, and I entered that competition. And here's the funny thing: that Milestone Initiative was only open to US and Canadian residents only. And I remember seeing that and went, "Fuck it, fuck it!" Like this is an opportunity to get my work in front of the eyes at DC Comics. And I was just thinking, that's all I want to achieve. Because I want to hopefully maybe get some feedback about my work, or maybe even get eyes on my stuff so that people are like, oh, okay, this guy's got potential.
From Jim Lee?
Yeah, hopefully. I don't know if Jim Lee was involved with the judging on that. So I applied, I sent through my pages, and then in January I get an email saying, hey, we've noticed that you say that you're based in New Zealand, and we just wanted to get clarification on that. I remember thinking, why would they email me that if they're not interested? Because if they weren't interested and they saw my work and like, oh, he's from New Zealand, they'll just bin it. That's an easy excuse to not proceed. So I was like, wait, if they're asking, have I made some kind of impression? You know? And so I emailed back and I said, yeah, I am based in New Zealand and Aotearoa. And they emailed back saying, unfortunately, due to my geographical status, they couldn't proceed forward with my application. But they liked my stuff and, you know, they'll put me on the books. And if there's something that comes up, you know, maybe they'll hit me up. I'm like, fuck, that's not a flat no. That's a...
Two maybes.
Yeah, I was just like, so that was January and then of this year. And then June is when I get the Disney version of that. And I was like, oh, fuck, okay. I had been thinking about going over to the States this year, but I hadn't booked anything. And then when I got that email from Disney in June and I was about to wrap up the documentary stuff, I had the funds. I was like, looks like I'm going to the US next month. And because it was a month away, everything was expensive. Everything was so fucking expensive. But luckily I was able to cover it with the work I had done. And I was just like, okay, let's book Disneyland. Let's book San Diego Comic-Con. Let's book Evo in Las Vegas. And then if I go over and nothing happens, I at least have a good time. Like, regardless, I'm going to have a good time.
Because I remember your post that time on your stories. You're in Disneyland.
Yeah. So I emailed, you know, DC and Disney saying, hey, I'm going to be in California next month, you know, in a couple of weeks' time. You know, let me know if you'd like to meet in person. I'd love to meet some of you guys, and whatnot, and hopefully we can make something happen. And I got replies where they were like, oh, they were interested, but nothing was really kind of set. And so I was like, cool, like, you know, I got some replies. I was like, maybe I'll have something happen. And so I booked everything, flew over. And nothing was booked. No meetings were booked. Nothing was scheduled. I was just like, okay, if I'm in there and they really are interested, they'll make meetings happen because I'm there in person. And so I hadn't heard back from DC or Disney about confirmation about meetings and stuff. And like the second day I'm in LA, I'm off to Disneyland, and you saw my stories where I was just posting shitloads because people on my IG were like, can you post as much as you can because we want to live through you? So I'm like, okay, I'll post hundreds of photos from Disneyland. So I'm posting from Disneyland. And one of the Disney guys I know on Instagram's like, hey, dude, are you here in LA? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm here for Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con next week. He goes, okay, cool. I've got a couple of people from Disney that want to meet with you. And I was like, fuck, the second day I'm there, I've got a potential meeting with Disney.
Wow.
Like the gamble paid off.
Wow.
Like all the money I spent on this fucking trip paid off. But I didn't know how much it was going to pay off until I actually had the meeting. And so I was like over the moon. I was like, fuck, yes, cool. This trip was worth it. But I'm still going to have fun. I'm still at Disneyland. I'm still going to have fun. And I've still got Comic-Con. And so Comic-Con, and so after Disneyland, I head down to San Diego, and Comic-Con's started and stuff. And I hadn't heard back from DC, so I was like, Comic-Con's been going for a couple of days now. I'm not going to hear from them. But Comic-Con's crazy. And then the Friday evening, I get an email from DC going, hey, what's your schedule like tomorrow? Got a couple of editors that want to meet with you. I'm like, fuck, whatever your schedule is my schedule. Like, that's, like, I was like, I will work around whatever you need me to. And so, so I ended up having a couple of meetings with DC Comics editors. One of them being the Batman editor. And he liked my stuff, and, you know, of course, contact details and stuff. And he was just like, oh, yeah, we're booked out for this year, but, you know, maybe next year we could see if we can try you on a short story and see how you go on that. I was like, oh, shit. Like, that's, like, okay. I was just like, most of the meetings I've had at Comic-Con in America, there's always been kind of like portfolio reviews, which is kind of what these ones with the editors were. But these editors wanted to see me. rather than me going up to an editor. Like,
Oh, right.
so I was like, oh shit, this is a different dynamic. Like, this is actually personal, like sitting down with them rather than them sitting there and then all these artists and stuff come up to them. And so with the portfolio reviews, I'm always going, okay, I'm just wanting some critiques. I want to know what I need to work on and all that stuff, what my strengths are. And so sitting down with the Batman editor, we had a meeting for about like 45 minutes or so over lunch. And he was like, hey, in my portfolio that I showed him had my milestone initiative pages. He was like, hey, yes, I remember these pages. I was like, oh shit, like it did make an impact. People recognize it. And so yes, afterwards, like I thanked him for his time and stuff. I said, oh, thank you for your time. And he's like, thank you for being good. I was like, oh, awesome. Like, and I guess when you're an editor and stuff, you see so many artists of varying degrees of skill. And I guess it'll be like American Idol, where there'll be a lot of shit. And so like, the ones that are good stand out. And so when you said, oh, thank you for being good, I was like, oh, okay, awesome. Like, and so later on the evening, I ended up having another meeting with one of the other editors
From DC
Comics. Again, they wanted to see me because I was like, oh, I don't want them post because they were doing the DC Comics mixer after Comic-Con. So they were at the bar that was closed down just for DC Comics employees and stuff. And they were just chilling, having drinks. And then I was told, oh, no, the editor wants to meet you. So, like, come by. I was like, oh, are you sure? I don't want them post. Like, no, he wants to meet you. So he took time out of the mixer to come and talk to me. I was just like, oh, shit. Like, and then again, I thanked him for his time because I understand, their time is precious and, I don't want to impose. And so he looked through my stuff and he really liked my work too. And I was like, oh, shit. Okay, this is crazy. And funny enough, when I talked to the talent relations manager for DC Comics, like she was the one that facilitated these meetings. She was the one I was kind of going back and forth with before I flew over. I like what she did for me. Like I can't like state how much it meant to me because I got to talk to her afterwards, and she was like, "Oh, how was that last meeting with the last editor I talked to?" And I was like, I think it was pretty good because she goes, did you like your work? I mean, yeah, he did actually. She goes, that's a good thing because he's a harsh critic. And if he doesn't like your work, he will tell you. So if he likes your work, it's like, that's a good thing. I'm like, oh man, okay, that's cool. And then we proceeded to talk more and she kind of revealed why these meetings happened at San Diego Comic-Con. So when I emailed her, like, hey, I'm going to be in California, so she's like, hey, can you send me some of your work? So I sent her my work, including the pages I did for the DC Milestone Initiative. And she said that she was actually part of that Milestone Initiative. And so when I sent her my work, she was like, yes, I remember your work. I remember your pages. I remember your pages because they were flagged. They were flagged by the Cubit School of Comic Art. And the Cubit School of Comic Art is like the comic school.
That's
Adam, started by their father Joe.
Yeah.
Adam and Andy Cubit, the sons of Joe Cubit. Yeah, so like they kind of run it now. Since the father passed away. So so they were judging the artists for this Milestone Initiative. And she goes, yeah, I remember your work because it was flagged by the Cubit School. And she said it was flagged because the Cubit School wanted to make an exception for you. But unfortunately, DC didn't have the travel budget, to bring me over from New Zealand. And so...
is that why the America, Canada?
Well, it was always America, Canada. And I guess that's kind of the budget for regional domestic travel. But yeah, so like... And she said they did get other international entries. But she goes, yeah, I remember yours because it was flagged because they wanted DC to make an exception. Unfortunately... they couldn't make it happen. And she goes, we couldn't make it happen then. So she felt she needed to make it happen now while I was in town. So that, again, just being in a space that I wasn't supposed to be in, like, paid off. Because now I've got, like, the contact details of the Batman editor and, another DC Comics editor and stuff. And, and it sucks too because, like, they're like, oh, send us new stuff when you can. I'm like, I've been working for Disney since I got back from the States, and I haven't been working on comics, so I don't have anything new to show you guys.
Right. So,
Around that time, I get an email saying, "Hey, we'll meet with you in Burbank, LA, on Tuesday." The Disney guys. I was like, "Okay, awesome." And so Burbank's in LA. I'm in San Diego, so I'm like, "Okay, it's a Tuesday. I should go up on Monday, kind of chill, so I'm not rushing into that meeting." And so I end up being on the Comic-Con finished 5 p.m. Sunday. I'm on the 4 a.m. Monday train back up to LA.
How long's that trip?
It's about three and a bit hours. And so I get to Burbank, and then I stow away my luggage, and then I end up going like to Warner Brothers Studios and so going on tour because I'm like, I can't check in until the afternoon. Let's kill some time. So I went on the Warner Brothers tour and stuff. Caught up with some friends in LA, and then Tuesday rolls around, and I head over to where we're meeting, and they kind of like, "Hey, so do you know what this meeting is about?" I'm like, "Not particularly." Like I had my portfolio on my iPad, kind of getting ready to kind of do my pitch like I usually do with portfolio reviews at Comic-Con. And it's like, "Oh, so we've been wanting to work with you since the beginning of this project, but Disney don't necessarily hire outsiders."
All right. So they probably pulled some strings then.
So we've been trying to get you on board, but they've been saying no. And we saw when you posted saying that you got declined, essentially. I got rejected, but maybe they'll find something for me. They were like, we got pissed off because Disney didn't tell us. Like if Disney had told us that I had applied, because I went through the official channels, that's how they could have hired me earlier. Like, you know what I mean? So they're like, God damn it, Disney. And so when I was in LA at Disneyland, the guys were like
excited.
They were like, God damn it, we got to get him now. Like, he's in town. Let's go meet with him. Let's go get him. And so they were like, yeah, so how would you like to work with us? I was like, oh shit. Wait, this isn't a meeting. This is a job offer? Like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh, so I didn't have to show you my work? Like, and they're like, oh, no, we're more than aware of your work. Like, so, yeah, we want you on board. And they're like, yeah, we know, initially it'll be 5 weeks. And I think the 5 weeks was kind of like a trial period for both of us, where like to see if I'm good at the job. And they said, yeah, even to see if I like the job, because it's something different from what I do. Maybe I won't connect with it. And so I was like, fuck yeah, 5 weeks. Okay, that's 5 weeks. I will be working for Disney. 5 weeks I'll be getting paid well. 5 weeks I'll be learning, and I'll be in that space. And so so they took a chance on me. And
so your trip just extended to 5 weeks?
Oh no. Yeah, so they went funny enough, because they were like, oh we were thinking you'd be in LA for 5 weeks, but we reckon you could do it from New Zealand. I was like, fuck yeah. And so they were like, yeah, so we'll sort all of that stuff out. You get paid in New Zealand dollars and stuff. So that, again, that makes the tax stuff much easier to navigate. So I was just like, oh shit. Like, I was going in, I was happy just to have a meeting. Like, funnily enough, at San Diego Comic-Con, when I realized, in my mind, I was like, DC aren't going to call me. But I was just like, but I've got a meeting with Disney, so I don't care. Like, I've got a meeting. Like, that was my objective of that trip, was to try and make meetings happen by being there, putting myself there. And, so that job offer came around, and I was like, oh shit. And so, 5 weeks, I was thinking, I've got 5 weeks. Just do as much as you can, do the best work you can, learn as much as you can. And, they issued me a scene to illustrate. And in my third week, on the second pass of the scene I illustrated, they were like, cool, that was awesome. Like, let's send it to editorial. I'm like, oh, you're not giving me more notes? Like, I was expecting to keep working on it, to fine-tune it. But they were like, nah, that was awesome. Like, yeah. And so I was like, oh, shit, I guess I do belong here. Like, and like the thing is, I had fun doing it. Like, it was fun to do. And then like a couple of days later, this was like the third week of my 5 week contract. Yeah, and a couple of days after that scene got accepted, approved, they were like, hey, we'd like to extend your contract till February. So I was like, oh shit, that's 6 months. That's 6 months of Disney work. So I'm like, okay, it's like you kind of, again, what's the best that can happen, right? But in my mind, because I just ride the waves as they come, I was like, it'll be awesome if I work longer than the 5 weeks, then maybe they like me and I do good work. But at the same time, it's like, just do the work. So I'm not worrying too much about what could happen.
Yeah.
It's more about, okay, just do the work, but hopefully if you do the work, more opportunities will come their way, and then it did. And so, I'm currently, contracted to Feb, but, and I'm working like I'm contracted to Feb, but maybe close to the time they might extend it. I don't know. But whether they extend it or not, like, I've had such a great time working for Disney so far and learning so much working with Disney, that, like, again, it's the experience. Like, I've learned so much from the experience, and luckily through the experience I got paid well. So it's like, I'm just like, cool. And I'm doing all kinds of stuff, like I'm just working till Feb. But I would love to learn more, continue to get paid by Disney, but but again, like, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I have other projects that I can work on. And with the Disney money, like, that relieves the pressure to constantly be working on new projects to fill the coffers.
And saying that, with Disney Animation, with the editors, those two guys are producers that you saw, or editors?
Was the director, was the head of story, and stuff.
Okay.
Like, those were the guys, and like, and they took a big gamble on bringing me in. And when I work in that space, I'm always thinking about doing good work, but also proving their core right. Was the right one.
Did they tell you what was different to your work to the other guys that made them, or did they just like the scenes you were producing?
Yeah, it was a mixture of stuff. Yeah, but it's definitely one of those things. And talking to them in person, and hanging out with them for about a week or so at the studios. We've had some great conversations. In between, they were super busy that week too. But, we had some lunch together. They said that, like, my DNA is all over this project.
Right.
Like, I've changed the way they kind of look at things. And I was like, oh shit, even in a place like Disney, you can make some kind of change. And, like, this is me coming in as a newbie, as outsider. Like, and like, as I said, like, the atmosphere is so great to work in. Like, I absolutely love it. I absolutely love the story team I'm with. Like, we're all so awesome. Like, it's surreal, because, like, it never really feels like work. Like, even for Disney, it doesn't feel like work. Like, it's like you're hanging out with mates, making, telling stories. It's just that this story, will then be animated and then on Disney Plus in a couple of years' time. So yeah, like, it's just been real crazy, and like, as I said, the whole last year, 2 years, it's been full on crazy, because I had that documentary stuff, and then I went straight into the Disney stuff. And funny enough about the Disney stuff is they wanted me to start working from like August 8th or something, I think, and I was like, that's the day I leave America to go back home. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll push it back a week. So, like, they wanted me to work, like, straight away.
Right.
Like, right from the get-go, they were like, okay, we need them to be working on this, like, straight away. And so, yeah, I had a great trip, fun trip. And then I got home, had a couple of days, and then I was straight into work. But I was ready for it, because I was like, fuck, I've got this Disney job. And, yeah, and like, obviously I can't speak, can't talk about the project. They was like, yeah, you can say you work for Disney, but you can't say what you're working on, which is fair enough. But I'm excited for once that announcement is made. Because then, yeah, and like, even just with, like, because when I had the interview with the reporter, like, I didn't mention anything about the project. Like, I didn't say, like, like, it was just more about my experience working in the Burbank studios. and all kinds of stuff like working for Disney and like how it feels, like loving the atmosphere and stuff. I didn't even think, and I was like, man, it was blowing up, and I was like, no one even knows what the project I'm working on. Like it's like once it gets revealed, like I think there's going to be a lot more media hitting me up to comment on it. But it's just surreal because as well as the Disney stuff and the documentary stuff, I'm also working on a video game project. I've been on the video game project for like last 2 years.
Actually making the game.
With a AAA studio. Again, same thing. I can't say who I'm working for or say what the project is. But it's a video game company that people know, and definitely people play their video games. And like there's still a few years left on this project. But that's surreal. Like in the next couple of years, I'll have credits in the Disney project and credits in a video game. Again, I didn't find myself thinking that I could make those kind of things happen as a comic book artist, but those opportunities presented themselves. I'm like, fuck it, let's go. Let's see where this takes me. Let's ride that wave.
I'm trying to think what would we call yourself that does all these things?
It's funny too because
digital artist, will it be?
Well, because like because comics have been such a huge part of my identity. I'm always like, I'm a comic book artist, stuff like that. But then just thinking about being a comic book artist, being a professional wrestler, being a story artist, and even with video games, like, the stuff I do, there's like a story in it.
All those three things are all story.
Yeah, so like all the things I do, I'm like, I guess if I were to whittle it down to one thing, I'm a storyteller. Yeah, just I tell stories in various mediums. Yeah, I know the arts industry likes to use the term like interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary artist. I fucking hate that term. And so I guess I'll just be like storyteller. But that's our people in a nutshell, right? We love telling stories through art, visual art, through music, through dance, through our traditional practices. Like that's what we do. We tell stories, and so I just happen to tell stories in a modern medium, and so if I were to say, whittle it down to one thing, like that, I am a storyteller.
I think wrestling is the least known story.
Once I break
characters,
I break down like the wrestling kind of the general psychology of a wrestling match. People are like, oh, true. I was like, yeah, this is the story you guys have digested in so many different forms. You just never realized pro wrestling was doing it too. So pro wrestling is definitely one of the fun ones to kind of explain and have people kind of go, oh shit, that's right. Like, whoa, I never thought of it that way. Pro wrestling, there's definitely storytelling.
How different is animation to what you used to during the comic? Because in terms of the technology wise, like it's iPads, right, with the comic book now, and is animation the same thing?
Yeah,
but you have to move. Is it the movement of the animation? Is it drawing every single?
No, so that's like the kind of 2D.
That's like the old school.
Yeah, that's old school, like 2D projects, and I think. I don't know if it's been released yet, but Disney, some of the old, because they've got like some of the old school animators still work at Disney. Been there like 50, 60 years.
Shit.
And so they have a project coming out that's 2D animated, and they took on some younger animators to kind of guide them and mentor them in 2D animation. But no, for us, we don't have to worry about that. As a story artist, it's one of those things where I didn't realize. Again, because I'm not in animation, right? I'm not animated. I'm not in the industry until now. I didn't understand the responsibility and the power a story artist has, and starting to work on it. Because, like, I know a lot of people who work in animation or work for like Weta. It should be Weta because of the my muffers on the A and the R. the people I know that work there, like, they do some of the CGI stuff, but there's like so many people on that same kind of project. Like you look at those heavily CGI movies, the credits, right? There's all these names, and you almost kind of get lost, and you kind of become a cog in the machine.
Yeah.
So I was expecting to be something like that, where it's kind of like no one cares. But as a story artist, because it's animation, we're kind of previs directors. We get to define emotional moments, emotional beats, the pacing of the scenes we illustrate. And I'm like, oh shit, that's a huge responsibility for a first timer in this industry. But again, like most challenges, I was like, fuck it, let's do it. Let's see what I can do. Let's see what I can come up with.
I think I know what you mean, because as an artist doing the animation, because traditionally it's the director telling the actor what to do. Yeah. But now it's the director wanting something, and the artist actually doing, like, telling the actor what to do by drawing.
Yeah, exactly. So and like we pick the like camera shots and stuff like that,
right.
Because you kind of have to draw it out and plan it out with storyboards first before it becomes animated. You can't do like in the several takes like in the live action. You've got to make sure that you know what it is that's going to be animated beforehand. So that's kind of our job as story artists. And like, it's not just storyboards that we do. We also, one of the cool things about that job, and I think that's why it's called story artist and not storyboard artist, because it goes beyond just creating storyboards. We're all contributing and adding new things to the story in general. So it's a very collaborative medium, which is why I love collaboration. I love the wānanga of like everyone getting together, adding their 5 cents to try and make the story that we're all telling together as strong as possible.
When you have these meetings, are you the only one on Zoom and everyone's in the meeting?
No, most of the time everyone's on Zoom as well.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes there'll be a handful of them in the office, so they'll all kind of be in the same space, but most of the time we're all in our own spaces. Some of them would probably like, we'll just stay in our cubicle. But everyone's on Zoom. Some people will be together. Most people will be in their own spaces.
Wow. Yeah, and how hard was that to learn? Because you had to start straight away.
Yeah, so
was there a time period to learn how to use the software and all that kind of stuff?
No, luckily, because I was able to use the general software I use for illustration, but then I just kind of transferred it over to the Disney server, like secure VPN stuff, to make sure that nothing gets leaked. So like I was able to work that like I usually do. I just kind of transfer the files over that way, so it wasn't too much of a change. It was more about interestingly enough, like I've been picking up on some of my comic habits, because with comics, you're trying to put as much information as you need to in one image, and I kind of noticed with some of my storyboards, I'm trying to fit everything in to one image when I realized, wait, it's movement. There's movement with this, so I can reveal something by having them walk in, or like I don't have to have them all there, like an establishing shot of them all there. I can actually bring elements in, and so some of that kind of change of thinking, not necessarily like challenging, but it's like sometimes I catch myself like, trying like it's a comic. You gotta think like in motion. You gotta think of like, so it's a different mindset. But there's a lot of similarities, so it's not as hard. But there are sometimes where you're like, remember the medium you're drawing for, and so you've got to kind of change things accordingly to suit the medium. So stuff that works in live action or animation won't work in comics, and vice versa. So you've got to kind of be cognizant of the fact that it's two different mediums, and sometimes I slip into comic book mode, and then I'm like, damn it, I drew this like I was expecting speech bubbles to be like So things like that. It's like there's like this dead space. I'm like, I drew it like, I was expecting speech bubbles to be in there. So there's little habits like that chipping away at them and just trying to kind of like I still feel like I'm trying to find my voice as a story artist and my style. But it's about quickly jotting down the idea and implication of like movement and feeling, emotion, and all that stuff. So it doesn't have to be polished. But I find myself kind of, again, because I'm so used to the way I do comic stuff, because I'm heavy in line work, it looks polished.
Right.
But like
it doesn't need to be. That doesn't need to be.
But I always tell people like, that's my rough.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, that's my rough. Like, because like my rough is like I don't care too much about the likenesses and stuff as long as people are identifiable. So like, so I was like, yeah, sorry guys, that's my rough. But yeah, because of what I'm used to, it looks a little different to some of the artists who are trained in animation, so they have like very animated kind of looking sketchier storyboards, while mine look a little polished because I'm like, that's my quick it's an interesting thing, but it's cool to see everyone's style. That's the thing, is like everyone brings their own style in the storyboards, and you don't have to kind of try and draw like everyone else. Like, as long as people can understand what the characters and all that stuff in your storyboards, there shouldn't be too much of a problem about not drawing these characters like perfectly. But like, again, a lot of it is implication, implied features. I could tell that's Mickey Mouse or something, without drawing all of Mickey Mouse. You can at least tell that's that character. So yeah, it's as I said, that's part of the learning curve. Some of those bad habits, not necessarily bad habits, but those comic habits. I'm so used to, we'll pop in. I'm like, and then like when someone says to me, yes, I can see, because I'm like, in my mind I'm thinking comic, but but there's motion, there's all kinds of different ways to frame things with animation and live action.
So to create an animated movie, like your typical Disney animated movie, what is the sort of process? You got the artists that do the storyboards, and then that's what you're doing. And then do you animate, or do you give it to the animators and they?
So yeah, there's all kinds of people. So there's I think there's a Disney studio in Vancouver, Canada, and they kind of do like the CGI stuff. So they do like the modeling and the rigging, and then the kind of animation, lighting, all that technical stuff. But like, while they work on those models and stuff, we're working on the story. And then once we get the story fine-tuned and where we want it to be, then the work that the Vancouver team have been doing it becomes in animating and to go with the storyboards or the director's vision of the episodes, of the scenes, and whatnot. So yeah, it's it's an interesting kind of thing, but everyone kind of adds their own spin to it, their own flair to it, and that's the best kind of collaboration, where everyone's working together, but there's room for everyone to contribute.
And how many storyboard artists are there on the project?
There's a few of us.
Yeah. Are they doing different parts of the film?
Yeah, we all do like different scenes of like an episode or different episodes. So yeah, so it's there's a few of us. I can't think off the top of my head, but I know there's like at least 15 of us or so. But there could be others as well. But there's a few of us, and like they're all talented as fuck. Like, and like what's crazy is like I'm sitting there in their story team, and I realized that the people in my story team, my coworkers have worked on Wreck-It Ralph, on Zootopia, on Raya and the Last Dragon, on Moana, on Beauty and the Beast. Like, I'm just like, holy shit! Like, these are my friends now. Like, it's crazy to know that these people have worked on those seminal Disney projects. Yeah.
We working for Disney when they changed their CEO.
I happen to be in America when Bob Iger
Yeah.
Came back And and it was kind of cool too because like the first day I was at the Burbank studios, he kind of did like an in-house, I think, town hall meeting, I think is what they called it. So it was pretty much like interviewing him about being back, what's his goal. So it was kind of nice to know that there was something like that where it's like, hey, there's a change of leadership. Here's your opportunity to ask them some questions, ask them what they are looking to achieve. And when I said there's at least some kind of guidance or some kind of roadmap towards what he wants to see with Disney animation.
So you came on board just at that time, when the new when he came back and
I've been working at Disney for a couple of months then, and but like with the changing of the guard, it was just kind of nice to know that they had something like that where the employees, the people of Disney, can ask him questions to his face, and provided like a platform and whatnot.
It's pretty interesting because I know Disney owns Marvel now, so that might be your way in the future.
Oh, I
that
hope
might
so.
be an opportunity.
Yeah, I was like, oh fuck, that would be cool. And it's only when they took me for a little tour around the Disney studios, they took me to the building where the Marvel Studios offices, and the guy's like, hey, up there, the second story, that's Marvel office. I'm like, oh shit, like you can see
Kevin Feige.
No, I couldn't see Kevin Feige. But I could see an Iron Man Mark 1 armor, as well as like their library of comics and omnibuses. And that was cool. And then they were like, oh, let's see if we could go upstairs. They went to check, like, nah. So I couldn't get into the Marvel Studios office, but like I got to see it from the distance. But like it was cool to see that as well. And but like that would be cool. Like, again, if it happens, it happens. But at the moment, like I'm just enjoying and concentrating on this Disney stuff that I'm on, because it's just been so good.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I'm happy for you, bro.
Thank you.
But man, I'm kind of getting hero fatigue now with the superhero stuff. Now I think it was Loki, my last one. That was good, and then after that,
well, yeah, like that's my shit. So like I enjoy all of that, all of the stuff.
As DC, I want them to come up because they've been behind Marvel Studios for so long, man. And I know they've.
Well, James
Batman's been successful for them, but that was it.
Yeah, with James Gunn,
because he's back and he's doing
doing the DC stuff. I'm like.
So he's the Kevin Feige version now of DC.
Well, essentially, him and I can't remember the other guy, but James Gunn, very much like Kevin Feige, where he grew up loving comics. Like he still loves comics. Obviously, he didn't stop reading, but like he's an absolute geek for that stuff. And one of the things that James Gunn does so well is that he's not afraid to explore the absurdity of comics. And and DC have always been trying to create like a serious front for like superheroes. Oh, they're gonna be, they're always gonna be scowling and always angry and stuff. But you read some of those comics and they're dumb as fuck. So James Gunn understands that there's an absurdity to the comic worlds, and you can bring some of that to the live action stuff, and. But at the same time, he can also add those mature tones to it.
Right.
You look at the Suicide Squad, or even Peacemaker, right?
Peacemaker's cool, man.
Those are so cool, but like you think about the whole concept of Peacemaker, it's corny as fuck.
Well, I thought Peacemaker was DC's answer to Deadpool.
No, not traditionally. Peacemaker was more of I'm trying to think if there's an equivalent that you would understand. He was kind of like a Punisher-ish thing, but without the whole family dying. Like it just happens to be that like his dad was a Nazi. I
thought Vigilante was that Punisher sort of character.
Vigilante kind of is as well. Again, like that version of Vigilante
He's a
like,
funny guy. Like,
yeah, was
I thought he was serious in the comic book.
yeah, he is serious in the comic book. That's the thing, you know. But like he ended up being like a standout character, you know, and I just cracked up because I think he's in the Harry Potter films, but I didn't realize he was English until I.
Oh, the actor.
Was it Freddie Stroma or something? But yeah, like I didn't realize he was English.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, he's awesome. But yeah, like and you watch Peacemaker, and there's a whole bunch of absurd shit in there, and you're just laughing. You're like, I can't believe, but like you're invested in it.
Yeah.
So that balance, James Gunn just has the knowledge of the comics and of filmmaking and storytelling in general to make these entertaining, sometimes violent, sometimes adult. But and the key thing about it is the heart. There's always heart. There's always an emotional investment in it, and that comes from the story he's telling, not necessarily all of those crazy parts he puts together, but all the crazy parts he puts together around the story. Is the kind of the Christmas wrapping of the real gift.
See, that's your storytelling skills coming up.
Yeah, and again, like it's one of those
that kind of stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, like I tell you, it's like sometimes as a storyteller, when you tell stories, and you, I guess, consume stories very much like it does for pro wrestling. Is that it kind of dulls your excitement for stories.
What do you mean?
Sometimes you can understand where the story is going before. Oh, right. And so they kind of...
And that ruins it?
Not necessarily ruins it, but it just dulls the excitement for it, So sometimes you're just like, oh, yeah, and you're trying, and then you're like, oh, no, I know where this is going. And then you kind of like, you're still liking it, but you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
I know what you mean. It's like, that the 80s action movies? Yeah. It's like it's the 2000s version of the 80s action movies.
Yeah.
It's the 2020s version of the action movies.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying, because I don't know if you watched that horror movie, Black Phone? The Black Phone? The Black Phone? It just came out.
Nope.
Earlier on this year. Oh, there's Nope, another one.
What's the other one?
But Black Phone especially.
Black Phone, yeah.
Like, it's a horror movie, right? But at the end is action. And I like that, because I never expected.
Yeah. It was kind of like more thriller.
Because you've seen it, eh?
Yeah.
So,
I enjoyed it.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But yeah, it goes thriller, then horror, sort of. And then when the hero goes fights the bad guy, Ethan Hawke, it turns into like a little action movie. And I love that, because that changes the whole genre, sort of thing.
I enjoyed that film too, because I think I was expecting more like full on horror, but I was like, oh no, I see what they're doing. It was quite enjoyable, and it was a nice kind of small film. Like it wasn't trying to be like this big thing, and
that reminded me of what Marvel was doing, because I think it was when Taika Waititi did Thor Ragnarok. And then I started to feel like Marvel Studios was taking genres into the superhero genre.
Oh, they've been doing that since the beginning.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Because Doctor Strange was like a mini horror sort of genre thing. And then Ragnarok was a comedy.
Yeah. So, so like they've been doing that. That's one of the great things about what they've done with Marvel Studios. If they've taken genre films and just put them into their superhero universe. Ant-Man's a heist film.
Yeah.
Thor is, because they had Kenneth Branagh, the director. Thor is like a Shakespearean play.
He's that type of actor.
Yeah, like that, so like it was so Shakespearean. Thor, little things like that, and then
they had to change it up with Taika.
Then you had kind of like the kind of buddy cop kind of thing with Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, that's right.
And funny enough, like with Thor Love and Thunder, I cracked up because I was like, oh, this feels like Taika Waititi doing like a Big Trouble in Little China. But like went too heavy on the humor so the balance was off. But like the first few minutes, I was just like, oh, it's 80s action films. Chris Hemsworth is wearing like a Yggdrasil t-shirt, like the tank top, the white thing with the Yggdrasil design. But the Yggdrasil design is very reminiscent of Jack Burton's tank top in Big Trouble in Little China.
The white with the sun.
Yeah. And then like even his jeans and the boots, right? Like it's Jack Burton. So I was like, oh fuck, it's Jack Burton. And then when he starts fighting those bikes, he turns into Jean-Claude Van Damme with the splits and even the jumping spin kick. Like I was like, Jean-Claude Van Damme? And then like, you know, and then you had was it Heimdall's son, you know, saying his name's Axel, you know, because of Axl Rose guy there. I was like, this is like an 80s kind of like it was very metal, you know, like again, when you look at the fonts and stuff, it was kind of metal. It was like Thor Love and Thunder was an airbrushed van. Like the airbrush fantasy art on a van of Marvel films. Yeah, that was the vibe I had. And so I enjoyed it, but like it wasn't. Yeah, I think he went too heavy with the humor that it cut a lot of the emotional elements out. But yeah, so yeah, Marvel have been doing that since the beginning. You know, like you look at Captain America: The First Avenger, it was like a war film. Like it was like Kelly's Heroes. You know, it was Kelly's Heroes, but in the Marvel universe. You know, so yeah, so they've been doing that since the beginning. And that's one of the things I loved about it. You know, you had Guardians of the Galaxy, like they were the Star Wars, the science, you know, the kind of space opera of you know, ragtag, you know, kind of bunch of you know, characters, you know, and like, you know, the underlying theme of Guardians of the Galaxy is you know, the found family. You know, and it's you know, it's not necessarily about the people you're related to; it's the people you let into your life that can sometimes become better family than your blood. And like it's accentuated more in part 2 when you meet his father, who's an absolute asshole, and he realizes that like Ego isn't his father, Yondu was. Yondu was his father figure. You know, like it's that kind of thing. So like, you know, that's the heart of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Despite all the humor and the space opera, Star Wars-ish, you know, kind of sci-fi elements of it, the key element of the story being told by James Gunn is found family. You know, your family is who you make it. You know, you don't, you know, blood doesn't always make you family. So I'm excited for part 3.
Yeah,
because that's the last one.
And what's the next stage of that story? Because
I think they're centering around Rocket.
Right.
So yeah, I think this is going to be Rocket's story, very much exploring what happened to him, why he is the way he is, and so I'm excited for that because, you know, again, James Gunn has told this emotional story through 2 films and a special that you're like, yeah, I know, I'm looking forward to it, but you're also dreading the fact that this is the last one with this team, with these characters, so you know it's going to get emotional. So yeah, and like the Christmas special, like I cracked up at that, just getting Kevin Bacon. Like, I was like, this is the best. You know, so yeah, it's that, you know, again, Marvel have been smart in terms of that, where it's like, hey, let's just dress up these genre films with our superhero characters, and then it kind of makes them feel different and kind of new and whatnot. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And like, I guess Secret Invasion, the series next year would be kind of like its espionage. Like they had a bit of it in Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Yeah, that's right.
It was kind of like political espionage kind of thing, thriller. But I think they're going to lean even more heavily into that for Secret Invasion.
The Secret Invasion, is that leading to just the Secret War storyline, or is that more the the Kroll and
the Skrulls and stuff. Yeah,
Skrull,
so I'm not sure. Well, definitely more Skrulls.
Yeah.
But whether it ties into Secret Wars, it probably will in some way. But it depends on how they do Secret Wars, because the Secret Wars from 7 years ago, it's like one of my favorites. I absolutely love that, and I'm like, they're not gonna use that, but who knows? Marvel will be like, fuck it, let's use that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit, I'm all for it. And I'm so keen for Kang as well, Kang the Conqueror. Like, one of my favorite. Like, I like a lot of the bad guys, so it's really awesome to kind of see like Jonathan Majors as Kang. Like, that's like when he played He Who Remains, Immortus in Loki. It was like, I'm not too sure. Like, how did you find that performance? Because like that was so. I couldn't like look away from it. Like, it just drew you in, like his performance. And when you think about that last episode where he shows up as Immortus, as He Who Remains, it's like 3/4 of the episode is just him talking. But like you just couldn't look away. You're like, holy fuck! Like, this guy is so awesome. Like, so charismatic, and you're like intrigued by the story, and there you kind of realize, wait, there's other versions of him.
Yeah. And that's what he revealed at the end there.
He's like, there's other versions of him and stuff, and I was like, oh, awesome. There's Kang and stuff. So, and like with Kang comes, I guess depends on how they play it. Kang is usually tied to time travel, but it looked like that instead of time travel, it's more alternate dimension travel, where he's finding other versions of himself and making him stronger in that sense, either recruiting them or killing them and stuff like that. So so they may have changed him into be more of instead of a time conqueror, variant conqueror, which will work with Secret Wars as well. And so I'm looking forward to, like, I'm a huge geek, so I watch all of that stuff. If I don't like it, I just watch it once, and that's it.
As a comic book fan and comic book artist, like, do you get annoyed when the movies change the story around, or
Nah.
Or is it exciting that they try to figure out better ways of telling the story?
Yeah, because they're two different mediums. Comics and movies are two different mediums. There's going to be compromises and changes. So I'm not one of those people that's like, it has to be just like the comics. I was like, fuck that. If I wanted it to be just like the comics, I'd read the comics. Mm-hmm. The movies, the television series, they have to bring something different. Like, still feel like the comics or the characters, but bring something different. And so I'm not one of those guys who are like, oh, I don't like it because it wasn't just like this comics. I'm like, if you want to like the comics, read the comics. Mm-hmm. Don't watch the movies, read the comics if you want it just like the comics. That's again, the storytelling aspect of me is like, I understand that these are two different mediums and certain things can only work in one medium over the other. You can't directly translate it. You can have shots, like there are often shots that were used from the comics, as a homage in the films, but like they don't have to read, or the movie doesn't have to be just like the comics.
Because I'm intrigued in how they're gonna bring in X-Men. Because since they've purchased 20th Century Fox, I don't know if they're gonna start again or continue.
Well, yeah, like we had that really cool cameo of Professor X and Doctor Strange too, and then you got Wolverine showing up in Deadpool 3. Like, it'll be like Hugh Jackman's last Wolverine appearance. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes from there.
Yeah,
after Deadpool 3. But once they show up, it's going to be rejoiced. That's for sure.
With Gunn now in charge of DC. I think it's DC. They call it DC Studios or DC Movies or DC Films or something like that.
Yeah.
How do you think he'll go? Because I had a problem with the Zack Snyder stuff.
I hate the Zack Snyder stuff.
I mean, I love him if he sticks to Batman, because Batman is a dark kind of. Do you agree with me when I thought that because of the success of The Dark Knight and Christopher Nolan's Batman, how they went back to the Dark Knight sort of theme and tone of it, that DC just wanted all their superheroes to be the same tone.
Yeah, I think
because Justice League was dark as.
Yeah, so they with the dark, realistic take that Nolan tried.
But it works for Batman because that's Batman.
Yeah, because Batman doesn't have powers, right? So
Yeah.
like, you can do a little grittier, and then they tried to be a little up tempo with Green Lantern, but Green Lantern didn't do so well, so they kind of shy like, again, they don't want bright superheroes. We'll go back to dark. And like the thing is, with Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, there's only one Batman film in that, because Batman Begins is the only Batman film out of those 3 films. Nolan has the Dark Knight Returns, the Dark Knight and Dark Knight Strikes. Fuck, I can't even remember. Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises is the third one, yeah.
Yeah, because that's how much I don't like them. So the only one I like is the Dark Knight, but
because Joker was the style.
no, it's not. It wasn't Joker.
Wasn't that?
So the reason why I say that in the Dark Knight trilogy there's only one Batman film, and that's Batman Begins, because that's the only one that censors Batman as the character. Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises are both films about the ideology of Batman, what Batman inspires in the city of Gotham. Because The Dark Knight isn't Batman's film, it's Harvey Dent's. Harvey Dent is the character that has a full story arc in that film. From like, Batman going, hey, if this guy's on the level, I don't need to be Batman with this guy in charge as DA running things, doing things cleanly. And then obviously he has that turn, he has that psychotic break, and then he becomes Two-Face, right? And so, like, the only thing I don't like about The Dark Knight is the fact that Two-Face dies so easily. I'm like, oh. But Joker in that film is what Joker should be, and that's chaos. He's a free radical. He's an anarchist. There's no reason for the Joker to be there. He just is. And like what he does is end up kind of taking Batman's attention away from the stuff happening with Harvey Dent, which kind of results in the death of Rachel, and then turns him into thing, and he kind of blames Batman for that. So that's Joker's whole reason to be in that film, was to be chaos. The character development is centered on Harvey Dent. So Dark Knight is a Harvey Dent film. And Harvey Dent is obviously inspired by Batman's crime fighting, which is why he wants to be the DA and kind of do things the legal way to kind of carry on Batman's crusade. And that's why Batman's like, hey, I can step away if this guy gets into power. This guy's on level. Dark Knight Rises is about John, what was his fucking name? Robin. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which was like, when he was like, my name's Robin. I'm like, oh, fuck. It's like, how heavy-handed did you have to be for that? Like, it was like, fuck. We all knew he's Robin, and you didn't have to just fucking say he's Robin. That is about him. It's about him being, as an orphan, being inspired by Batman, and becoming a cop to be like Batman and fighting crime and stuff. It wasn't about Batman. It was about John. Was it John Smith? I can't remember. John something.
I think it was John Smith.
Yeah, who gives a fuck? It's a basic white guy's name. So that's, and the ending, like the whole Talia al Ghul thing, I was like, that was so fucking obvious. And like even the Ra's al Ghul thing in Batman Begins, like when, like I was like, oh yeah, Ken Watanabe, that's cool. But then I looked at Liam Neeson and went, oh fuck, he's Ra's, and his. Again, it's one of those comic things as well. It was just like, oh, he's Ra's because he was wearing green.
Right.
And green is Raz's color, and Ken Watanabe was wearing red. And so, like, oh, this is Henry Ducard. I went, that's fucking Raz. like, it's like, they fucking tell me that's not Ra's al Ghul. So, yeah, and the Talia thing was just as obvious. Like, it was like, oh, that's Talia. Like, it was, so just kind of understanding that. You realize that's kind of what Nolan was trying to do, is like show how Batman is a symbol and can inspire change in people to fight, for Gotham City.
I think you explain why Dark Knight Rises shit, because that's the same theme, carrying on from the second one, right?
Yeah.
And then because I always wondered why, to me, the Batman character in The Dark Knight was like a minuscule character. It was in the background.
Yeah.
Almost like it was in the background.
That's what I mean. Like that's why it was.
But it was Heath Ledger's performance that actually was in my face.
Yeah.
And he stole every single scene.
Oh yeah, no, he did. But like the character development was all Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
So
you take Batman out, it's still a good movie.
Yeah. And like the ending of Dark Knight Rises pisses me off because he did Inception before Dark Knight Rises, eh? Yeah, he did, because that's why he had Marion Cotillard as Talia al Ghul. And so the ending of Inception, he has the spinning top, right? And then it cuts, so you don't know whether the top spin continues or stops, right? And it kind of leaves it open. I was like, why didn't he do that with Dark Knight Rises? Because all he had to do was have Alfred sitting there in that cafe, in that restaurant, having his meal, looking up, smiling, cut. Now you're like,
who's he smiling at?
Is Batman alive? But no, they had to show Batman.
Yeah.
They had to show Bruce Wayne and Selina. I'm like, fuck. Like, there would have been despite the shit movie, that would have been a stronger ending for me. Like, kind of leaving it open where you're thinking, oh, does that mean Batman's alive? Because Michael Caine's smiling and happy, because he talks about how all he wants to do is see Bruce happy, living a normal life. And so, like, that would have implied it without showing it, But yeah, I guess American audiences are too dumb.
Do you think that was one of those Hollywood? I know Hollywood does those audience testing.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it could be one of those things.
Do you think we like him? We want to see Batman.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that could be one of those notes. So.
Would that happen in the animation part? Like, would they have those? Would they have audience testing?
I'm not too sure about that. Whether things have been animated and then there's audience testing. A lot of the stuff gets hammered out in the story. This thing, because we storyboard it and stuff, and we get notes from everyone when we do screenings and that. So I'm not too sure about that, and once it's animated, but there might be some of that. I just don't know in what part of the process that happens. But yeah, like the whole dark DC stuff, like Zack Snyder. The reason why, like, I fucking hate any of his superhero stuff. But Zack Snyder, when you think about like his background in comics, or like not necessarily his background in comics, but like his history with comics, there's a whole bunch of interviews where he talks about the comics he read weren't the superhero comics. He read heavy metal, which was like kind of nudity and violence and fantasy stuff. And you think about that, and you're like, oh yeah, you could totally see he grew up on that stuff. He didn't grow up on superhero comics. So like he added all of that kind of that vibe, sex, violence, kind of cool looking shit, with no substance to the DC universe, and that's why I've hated this stuff. And all of his stuff I've only watched once, and I've tried my best not to pay for it because I can't stand it. He just totally didn't understand superheroes. It was all about machismo, all about like being hyper masculine, being like super strong, almost fascist a little. The whole only the strong survive kind of.
It's kind of all like for the moment rather than for. He was all for moments.
Yeah.
In the screen, not the story.
Yeah, he was just trying to do cool shit and no substance.
Like how Image Comics first started.
Yeah, it was very much. Yeah, it was like Image Comics. It looks cool, but it's fucking dumb as fuck. That's exactly Zack Snyder. He's the mega bro director, which is why a whole bunch of those kind of guys, the mega bros, the guys that have podcasts.
Yeah,
like the Andrew Tate guys, like loved Snyder because to them it was like, yeah, this is how you should be a man. You've got to be super strong. You got to have all these muscles. You got to fuck people up. And it's like that's not what superheroes are about, motherfuckers. Like, and funny enough, like adding that serious tone to the DC superheroes in particular just felt so off because,
especially Superman.
Oh yeah, because that
Man of Steel, man.
The only time I was like, oh, this is kind of what Superman should be, in Man of Steel, the only moment where he feels like Superman is when he's kind of learning to fly. Because that's the only time like you see him happy. And like I was like, holy fuck, where's this for the rest of the film? And so so I've watched the stuff only once, and I've just been like, oh, this is not a thing like it. I enjoyed Wonder Woman, hated Wonder Woman 84. I really like Shazam. I'm not too sure about Shazam 2. Like, it looks interesting, but doesn't look captivating to me.
Did you see Black Adam?
I saw Black Adam. It was alright. There's some cool moments, like, Pierce Brosnan as Kent Nelson. Like, that was a fucking cool choice. And like Dr. Fate having this like shadow clone jutsu, that was crack up. But it was okay. Wasn't the worst. That's the Snyder stuff. Aquaman I enjoyed, because that was kind of like leaning heavily into the absurdity of the Aquaman. So rather than going, oh, we're gonna make it super serious, like, fuck it, let's go balls to the wall. Like, I liked Aquaman because you could tell they were having fun with it. They weren't trying to, again, give it a super serious, sheen. Was just like, oh, okay, this is so out there. You've got to lean into some of the absurdity, and that's what James Gunn does really well, is understanding that.
With Aquaman, was it 2 or 1?
There's one. They're working. Part 2 should be out next year, I think.
James Wan, eh?
Yeah.
From
Fast and Furious.
Yeah, that guy. He's the horror director too, eh? Didn't he do?
Yeah, because he's Australian.
Yeah. So when I heard he was,
no, James Wan. No, is it John Lim? John Lim is the Fast and Furious. James Wan is Saw. Yeah, Australian. Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting, putting him in it, because I never knew him to do those kind of films.
Yeah. It's the DC stuff. Like, the DC stuff, I think that series being like was just totally weird, because DC superheroes are more like gods,
right? Yeah,
and more like aspirational figures. So figures you look up to and aspire to be like. And so, like, having that serious kind of like angry tone just felt so off with these kind of bright, godlike characters. Yeah. Like, when you look at the comics, you're like, the fuck? Even though they had like, Batman had like the comics accurate costume, it just seemed off because they were trying to make it a realistic film. So like, it's like, that looks just like the comics, but it looks so off because you're trying to make this serious and realistic. Like, you would be better off having like something like the Batman, kind of costume, the armor look.
Or normal boots.
Yeah, armor look, because like that looks at like something more realistic, like the Dark Knight trilogy, right? Where there's an armor to it, so it looks more like a realistic kind of suit that you'd make in real life. But no, they went, no, we're going to go with this comics accurate costume, and like it sticks out like a sore thumb, because the tone of the films just didn't match the comics accurate costume.
Yeah,
Another
thing with DC, they've got all these different universes going on at the same time.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that they don't have any kind of singular vision. You can have stuff exist outside of everything else. It's just there's no direction with what they were doing beforehand. So
is this James Gunn's sort of job now?
Yeah, James Gunn is going to kind of try and streamline it, make sure everything has like a vision or a direction that they want to go towards, and which is good. Which is kind of like what Feige does, where he's like, okay, this is what we're working towards, and so Gunn's kind of be in that kind of position. We're making sure things kind of line up together. If they don't necessarily connect story-wise, they connect thematically, at least. And I feel like, that kind of guidance is what DC is sorely lacking. A Kevin Feige-like figure that can kind of oversee things and go, hey, this is where we want to go, this is how we want to roll and whatnot. So, it'll be interesting times. But like, you look at the Marvel stuff, and the Marvel stuff is more like comics accurate. Yeah. than the DC stuff.
Well, it's more colorful to me. Colorful, fun. There's different genres.
Yeah, but then you look at the costumes, and most of the costumes, if they're human, you look at the costumes, you can kind of see how they work. Like, so you're like, oh yeah, that looks like something you would put on.
Yeah.
You know, like, so like it's weird. Like they have this kind of more comics accurate, but there's a grounding in reality which kind of works in line with that. But it's like if you're trying to go realistic and then you kind of think then that's where it kind of falls. But like you could be like all crazy, but as long as there's a little bit of grounding in reality, then people are like, okay, can understand it and accept some of the concepts better. Yeah,
I love what they did on. I was laughed at what they did on One Division when that was Halloween and
they were wearing the comics costumes.
But it was accurate. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing. Like you see it, like you're like
one day the Scarlet Witch, the comic version of the Scarlet Witch costume,
and you can see like you can see like comics accurate costumes just don't fly in real life.
Yeah,
unless like and so that's why I was like, I can understand why there's all these different kind of costume designs and stuff. And sometimes some of them work, some of them don't. But like I understand why they try. So when people are like, oh, we should have comics costumes, and it's like, yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work so well in live action. But the Marvel stuff. I mean, I always enjoy. I loved Moon Knight, and really enjoyed Ms. Marvel. The Werewolf by Night. Oh fuck, I love that. That was so good as a horror fan. It was just really cool to see them go full horror, and very much like 60s classic horror, as well. So again, it's those whole genre stories that are still within that same Marvel sandbox, which makes it exciting and interesting. They aren't just a lot of people complain like, oh, they're just telling the same old story. It's just like, yeah, we've been telling the same old story for years. The hero's journey's the same old story we've had. It's just because these are all connected, you feel like, these are the same old stories. Like, yeah, they're the same story, like Star Wars and any other. Rocky is a hero's journey story. Like there's, it's just like it's all the same story. It's just dressed up differently, and some people just feel like, Marvel are just doing the same story over and over again. So the structure of the story has been the same for millennia. It's just so yeah. It's been it's interesting times, but like I absolutely love it as a comics fan.
Coming back to New Zealand, and with our storytelling we have here with our films, our TV, stuff like that, I feel like we need more. I think we need more of our stories to be put out there, especially in the New Zealand context. Especially in the Pacifica context.
We need more of our stories being told by our people. That's what we need.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, a lot of the funding goes towards white people. And the funding that is given to brown people is always at a fraction of what white people get. And at the moment, there's this kind of, what do you call it? Like, there's a lot of money out there to tell brown stories. And that means a lot of white people are coming in trying to tell brown stories to get in on that funding, and because they're white people that get most of that funding. I think there's a TV series coming out.
So defeats the purpose, eh?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I know people who work in the industry and TV and stuff who are just. I keep hearing horror stories of shit. This is an unpopular opinion. But the Panthers TV show absolutely fucking sucks. Because
I had a critique on that.
Because despite all the people I know that worked on it, and all the brown people that worked on it, I've heard some horror stories about the production. And in the end, after watching it, I could see what they tried to do. And it's won a shitload of awards, so my opinion probably doesn't mean shit to them, but in the end, watching it, it still felt like this was a brown story told through a white lens.
Yeah.
Because
or it had the white sort of control over certain parts.
Yeah.
To make it more commercial or whatever they wanted to.
Because one of the first red flags that showed up in the first episode was they start off the series and the show, like you have Tiki Dupe and Troy Kingi kind of doing their thing, which is like, okay, I can see why they're appealing to the young audience, which is cool. I can understand why they're doing that. And Tiki Dupe, he's awesome anyway. So, and then they have like interspersed is amongst that is the actual news footage of white people being racist. Right, like these people should go back to where they came from. They should speak English. Blah blah blah. They cause trouble and all this stuff. Like they have actual archival footage from the news of white people being openly racist about Pacifica. And then in the first episode of the Panthers, what is the first time you see a whole bunch of brown people gathering together? When it's the gangs. So essentially, that first episode, you're proving those people right by having this gathering of gangs, your Warriors Cyrus speech light moment. I'm like, what the fuck? Why could you not celebrate actual brown gatherings? No, the first thing you show is these gangs, and then they fucking tear the streets of Grey Lynn apart. And so it's like, okay, so you have this gang meeting, which is where you see the most brown people in this first episode together, and then they cause violence and shit. Like, that's just perpetuating the fucking stereotype that those white people in the archival footage were saying about us. I was like, what the fuck? The other thing was the centering of the white woman. So the cop's wife, there was so much time spent on her because they were using her as the in for the feminist issues around the same time in the 70s. Right, the women's rights marches and stuff. So they were centering around her. Then she had like the abortion and stuff, and then and so they centered a lot of fucking women's issues around her. Why?
It's not about that.
It's not about fucking her. She's fucking white. The person they should have centered those issues around was Dr. Melania Nye. So the actress who played Melanie, she was fucking amazing. I really liked her. Because Dr. Melania Nye, her story itself, like fucking would have been perfect for feminist issues. She was a Samoan woman studying medicine at the University of Auckland in the 70s. They show her class. It's all white. She's like the only brown girl, like in Will Ololo here. I fucking hated that character in that TV show. He was an absolute dick, and he never really kind of learned from it. So I couldn't stand it. The actor was cool, but again, the character that he was playing was an absolute prick. But Dr. Melania Nye, female Samoan woman at the Auckland University of Auckland, studying medicine with pretty much other white people in the class. Her mother dies. So at home, she becomes the sole female in the house. And so she has to look after her brothers and her father. I'm like, feminist issues right there, fuck. Feminist and racist issues. You can fucking explore it and do all of that. But no, there was more time spent on Carol. I think it was her name. On the white woman than they did on the brown woman. And I was like, yeah, this is fucking... You know what that reeked of? That reeked of... Oh, we need to have a good white person in the series because we don't want everyone to think white people are bad. Fuck you. This is a brown story. Like, why the fuck did you have to center a white person on it? And then the whole I don't want to talk about him because of all the shit around him, but the My Film guy.
Yeah.
The way it ended, where the white cop tried to kill him because he thought he was sleeping with his wife, and then he doesn't rat on him. It's like, what the fuck? You're defending a white dude who just tried to kill you. Why? Again, these white people, despite the white cop doing dumb ass fucking shit and try to kill another brown guy, like a brown guy, that brown guy still sticks up for him.
Yeah.
I'm just like, fuck. Fuck you, Panthers. I don't give a fuck. Like, people will probably get, like, if they watch this, people will probably get upset with me. But I don't give a fuck because I don't work in your industry.
Yeah.
I probably won't now, but, that's one of the things as I said, I've heard a lot of fucking horror stories, and I'm not gonna talk about them in this podcast because I'm talking about how I saw the series. I'm not gonna talk about stuff I've heard from people who were actually part of that production, but because those aren't my stories to tell. But I'm just speaking from what I saw wrong with it. And the thing is with the TV and film industry is blacklisting is a very big thing. So a lot of people who had issues with the Panthers and worked on the Panthers won't say anything because they're afraid of being blacklisted, which is a very real thing in the industry. But I don't work in the industry yet. So fuck you guys. Fuck the Panthers TV series. What are they going to do? They're going to fuck up. They're going to fuck up season 2. Apparently, they're going for season 2. They're going to fuck up the Bastion Point protest. Is that what they're going to do? They're going to fuck up the Springbok protest and center it around the Springbok. I don't know what the fuck.
But look who you work for. You work for something bigger than
anything
in New Zealand right now.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
you got a whole global corporation. We work for.
Yeah, I work for Disney, motherfuckers. Yeah. Take your Panthers tail and stick it up your ass. But
for me, when I watch the Panthers, see, I understand where you're coming from because as a storyteller yourself, you can pick up all these things that normal people like me want. I love stories too, but you're on another level with your storytelling experience that you understand the underlining message. It comes from. But for me, it's authenticity.
Yeah.
And once you see something that's not authentic, that's a red flag.
Oh, fuck.
And then it makes you think, okay, if they were soft on that, what else were they soft on?
Yeah.
See, and I might not pick other things up, but because of that first red flag, right earlier, mind you, because the red flag for me came early. You know what it was? The slang they were saying.
Oh, yes. See, I was like, I guess again, I can understand why they were trying to use that slang because again, they're appealing to the young people. They wanted the young people to kind of. It was like, hey, we're going to try and make this cool, hip version, right?
I get it, but I don't buy it. I don't buy that.
But it was disjointing. You're like, what? But yeah, like
no one's saying oos back then.
But yeah, like I can understand what they were trying to do. Like I kind of
that kills it, right? That kills it. Like if you I want to my parents weren't talking like that when they were their age, and possibly,
Yeah, it's just funny because you brought up authenticity. And like I could comment on that, but again, this isn't my personal experience with the whole Panthers debacle.
But you would have picked up more than that.
Yeah,
but for me that ruined it because now I'm thinking, fuck, what else did they fucking?
It was props to the production crew and stuff. Like the costumes were dope. It looked slick as fuck. Like, man, it looked really good. But the substance for me just fell apart because there was so much centered on the white family away from the brown people, and I kind of know why. But again, it's not my place to comment on that. I'm talking about how I saw it and the shit I saw that just absolutely pissed me off. I was hate watching it from episode 1. I watched the whole thing and I just fucking I was hate watching it. I was seething every time I had to watch it. I watched the new episode. That's how fucking annoyed I was. And again, it's won a shitload of awards, so they don't give a fuck about what I say. But I don't give a fuck about what they think either. So I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. That's kind of always been my MO. I mentioned empathy being a key skill for an artist, and another kind of non-tangible skill to have as an artist is integrity. If you have something to say, you've got to be able to make sure that what you're saying means something. You see so many people blowing smoke up people's asses, and I try I try my best to be to hold my integrity with everything I say. I try and be real, and sometimes that rubs people up the wrong way.
Yeah. I mean, but you've experienced some conflicts in your journey. I remember when you came first time, you were talking about how you were trying to get funding.
Yeah.
But especially, what's that organization?
Creative New Zealand.
Creative New Zealand. Specific funding for Pacific Islander guy doing art, but they wouldn't give it to you because you weren't doing the art they wanted.
Well, that's always the vibe, and you know, speaking of Creative New Zealand again, speaking of integrity and never sugarcoating shit. The Creative New Zealand Pacific Arts Summit in October, they asked me to come down and speak on one of their panels, and so they're like, "We'll pay for your flights, we'll pay for your accommodation, we'll pay you for your parents on the panel. Because would you be interested?" I'm like, "Would you let me talk my shit?"
Yeah.
Because if I come down, I will talk my shit. And they were like, "Yes, please, we would like you to come down." Like, okay, I will come down and talk my shit on your dime. So they flew me down. I go to the Pacific Arts Summit. It's my first ever Pacific Arts Summit, believe it or not,
Yeah.
that I've been invited to. Which they were shocked. They're like, "Oh, you've been to one before?" I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's right, motherfuckers." But so I'm on the last panel of the day, and we're all going through introductions. I'm like, "Hey, introduce yourself, blah blah." And I run through the gamut of all the stuff I do: comic book artist, professional wrestler, professional gamer, professional driver, Duffy Books and Homes role model, blah blah. And now was even like award winning, Creative New Zealand award losing, kind of like I was just like, "Yeah, fuck you guys." And then I finish it off with story artist for Disney Animation Studios, and I hear the crowd go, "Oh, like damn." And then I was like, "But let me just I just want to publicly state that Creative New Zealand had zero involvement with me getting that job. Zero. Nice. I'm gonna sit up here and make sure they don't take credit for my success." Nice. And so everyone's like, "Yeah, mother," everyone's like clapping and stuff. Like, "Yeah, that's right. You paid me for me to put you on blast on your platform, because that's how it is." Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, because they haven't, like, they funded me in 2020 for the Samoan language comic, but I've been an established artist for at that time, like 16 years. So it's not like they were helping me develop. They were finally going, like, I was like, "Man, this Samoan language comic seems like the perfect project for them to fund. So let's go for it." And they did fund it. But there was nothing in my development, right? Where you really need it. Where, like, as a young artist, you need the development to grow as an artist. I was like, I'm already fucking doing this shit. Like, it was almost like, okay, cool, we can get this because he's already been doing this for so long. Like, it's just fucked. So I got that funding. I was like, oh, awesome. But even then, that because they had no hand in my development or in my progress in my career, I'm not beholden to them. Like Ultron says in Pinocchio as well, like, there are no strings on me. Like, they can bring me down and invite me to stuff as much as they want. I will still talk my shit because they've never helped me personally, like properly, like in my career. They've only come in the latter stages where I've already done a whole bunch of shit. So they're Johnny come lately. So I was like, I am not gonna fucking bow down to you. And because you've never had any hand in my development or my success, I don't have to listen. I don't have to fucking do what you tell me. And I also admit that's a privileged position. Again, very much like the film and television industry in terms of blacklisting. A lot of people are afraid to speak up because they're afraid of being blacklisted or not receiving funding.
Yeah.
And the whole kind of funding model with Creative New Zealand, like, is so fucked up. Contestable funding, like, you're going up against everyone else. It's fucked. There's only X amount of money to go around.
Jump through hoops.
You jump through so many fucking hoops. And one of the things that sucks about the funding and whatnot is that when you look at who gets funded for each round, there's usually like the same old fucking usual suspects getting like the maximum amount, like 75,000.
Because they know how to fill out the form.
They know how to fill out the form. They've been playing this game for longer than everyone else, and they know how to tick all the fucking boxes to get the funding. But at the same time, I'm like, where the fuck have you been spending that money? Like, have you not used that money to kind of create a self-sustaining career so you don't have to go back to Creative New Zealand every fucking round to take more money away from those who need it? The younger artists, the ones that need development, the ones that need experience, right? And
that should be a red flag then for them. Oh, you come in for your fifth round of funding, then aren't you sustainable?
but like at the same time, Creative New Zealand only give you just enough to and not enough to really make you sustainable at the same time. But yeah, I'm always like, fuck, why are these people always getting $75,000? Like, fuck, for me, it's like, what they're doing is they're investing in the same old, the old guard. Who gives a fuck about the old guard? The future of Pacific Arts is in the young artists. Provide funding for the development of younger artists to create a future for our arts. Because otherwise it would just fucking fall by the wayside and just be the same old motherfuckers in the same old spaces. So that was one of the things I was trying to champion at the Pacific Arts Summit, was like, because I don't need the funding. Like, I'm lucky enough, I don't need the fucking funding, but the young artists do. And so I was just like, yeah, fuck, where are the young people? Where's the funding for the young people? And development isn't necessarily about, because the funding is usually about, like, you have to have like an end goal, like there has to be a product, something produced at the end of a specified amount of time for the funding. I'm just like, the young people, like, because part of the things that make some of the applications more attractive to the assessors is having a proven body of work. You have to have proven that you are of a certain skill and that you have the certain experience to be like, yeah, I can do this, and then they're like, okay, cool. But the young people don't have that, so there's already a barrier for them to apply for funding, because they haven't had the ability and the time and the funding to develop their skills, to create a body of work, to create experience without like an end product hanging over them. And so yeah, it's I'm so fucking glad I'm not part of that shit, because because I was like, fuck, it's like, even people like this latest funding round, like top tier Pacifica artists didn't get funding that I know. I'm like, what the fuck? How did you not get funding? You're like a fucking darling of Pacific Arts, but you didn't get the funding. Like, it's pretty fucked up. And like, the funding doesn't necessarily mean that the project isn't going to go ahead. It just makes it harder to make your project go ahead. The funding just makes it easier, allows you a bit of breathing room and to relax a little about bringing your project to life. But yeah, it's such a fucked system. But
we've got a whole lot of funding for arts, for for journalism, for anything. Like, there's a lot of funding out there to go towards anything.
Yeah.
Pacifica, in all industries or whatever it is. I'm starting to think it's starting to be a detriment to us, because if we were just relying on that, where's our resilience? Where's our sort of drive to be? If we're passionate about what we want to do, it doesn't matter, because we're still going to get there. But like you said, we'll get there longer. The thing will help us, but we shouldn't rely on that. Like, you've gone through the pathway of not getting these funding, but you still made it to where you're gonna go because you're passionate about what you're doing. That drive does mean, like, oh yeah, the money will help. Thanks. Or if you're gonna screw me, or fuck you, I'm gonna still do, you're just gonna. But that pathway, I think that's the attitude. If everyone had that attitude, because I think if we rely too much on funding, then the creativity will slow down, or the drive will slow down.
I can see. Yeah, cause like it's kind of like where people are like, oh, they're always wanting a handout. But as I said, like, the funding they dish out is just enough to get you by, but not enough to make you sustainable. Because if you're self-sustaining, if the arts practice is self-sustaining, what's the need for Creative New Zealand, right? And one of the notes I left with the Creative New Zealand Pacific Arts Summit was, Creative New Zealand should be actively working towards an arts industry where they're no longer needed. They should be able, it won't happen now, it won't happen like maybe 10 years or so, but I keep thinking, your job is to create artists that can thrive without this funding, which will in turn mean that your organization is defunct and no longer needed, which is a good fucking thing.
But doesn't mean survival of their jobs too.
But again, people don't want to lose their jobs and lose the cushy jobs and the cushy pay they get. So like, but like in my mind, it's like I would be working towards the destruction of this through good means, not like a fucking implosion or explosion. More like everyone is doing so well, we are no longer needed. Like that should be what they should be working towards. But again, selfishness and self-preservation, like, oh, if we don't exist, then, where are we going to get our cushy jobs, from our cushy pay and stuff. So like, it's interesting.
That's something that your friend of yours, King Caps, he was talking about too when he came on. Like a lot of times, it's like power corrupts. Like if they get money, they become a gatekeeper all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And like all they're trying to do is survive the next round and survive.
Or hold on to that power. Yeah. Like this. And so it's interesting. Like that's how I feel about all of that stuff. And I don't know. The last podcast, did I swear as much? I know. I feel like
we all swear.
That's good. I just feel. Funny enough, I just feel more comfortable. Like this time around, I'm just like, I'm just speaking with integrity. But
that's my sort of thing. Try to get it's a comfortable conversation. It's not like an interview.
Yeah. So people are like, what? I didn't expect it. This is me, and this is the real me. Like if you talk to me in real life, it's like every second word is a swear word. But it's not like a swear word to be crass and offensive.
No.
It's funny because I remember reading about it too. Those who use swear words in a passionate manner are usually linked to like higher intelligence. And so for me, I'm passionate, and that passion comes through in swear words.
I believe that because my boss, he says fuck like in the normal talking.
Yeah.
Like normal sitting, like he's not. He just says that word.
Yeah.
Just when he's talking normally.
Yeah. So I'm a smart ass and smart. So fuck you. But that's. I remember reading that and be like, oh yeah, that probably explains why. But yeah, for me, I link it to I'm passionate about what it is I'm talking about, and when I am passionate and I'm unfiltered, the swear words come out. I'm just like, nah, fuck it. I'm not gonna hold back. Let me fucking speak the truth. So I was gonna apologize, but nah, fuck it. I'm not apologizing for being me.
You don't need to fucking apologize. Fuck no, you don't need to apologize. But it's funny because I'm thinking when we're talking about all this stuff, and a previous guest we had was Jemima.
Oh yeah,
Jemima Tita. Yep. Man, I wish I could have talked to her longer.
Yeah, she's awesome, man.
She's awesome, man. Like, talk about inspiration. I mean, she can see past all that bullshit.
Yep.
And go straight to positivity. And the positivity I got from her was like a shining light of what we've been talking about. And that shining light is, you know what? We are so skilled what we do. We can own our shit. One day we can own our shit and not have to answer to anyone.
Well, yeah, we can if we were given the tools, but they say, the master is not going to provide the tools for a slave to build his own house, right?
Well, maybe we should. Maybe it takes people like you or people like her and people like us to figure it out.
Yeah, the disruptors.
Just figure it out.
Yeah,
like see the blacklist thing. That's bad. If you're worried about if that's the thing that stops you from speaking, that's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, but like that's also self-preservation as well. Like if film and television is your livelihood, to have that taken away from you, like that's a scary thing. And so I don't bemoan those who can't speak out. Like speaking of all that stuff, like my friends over at CIS, the show, like they're currently fighting a massive legal battle with NZ on there.
Oh yeah.
Because of like the contract and shit, like it's all over their socials. They leaked their season of their series early
on the web,
and made it available worldwide, so anyone around the world could watch it because they weren't happy with the contract and the deal that New Zealand on Air was trying to offer them, and they were like, nah, fuck it, we would need to kind of take matters into their own hands, and obviously they got them in legal trouble. And now New Zealand On Air is withholding the last of the payments for them completing their series, which is a fair bit. Like, I don't know how much Panthers got, but they got quite a fair bit of money. But Sis, for 6 episodes as well, got like 2 million, which sounds like a lot, but it's not. And so they had like a small budget to do like the series, while more of the white-led productions, like I think Far North, which is another thing from all things called White Balance Pictures, got like 10 million, which is like apparently like one of the highest kind of fundings you could get for a TV series, and it's like first timers. But like I've heard things where that show had been shopped around several times for funding and got declined because it was racist as fuck, but then somehow it gets through, and it's still gonna be racist as fuck.
Maybe there's a loophole. Put white in your name, production name or something.
It's still gonna be racist as fuck because it's about the is it cocaine? Oh, heroin? In 90 Mile Beach.
Cocaine, I think.
Okay, yeah. So it's about the Tongans, the Maori, the Chinese and stuff, and you got white people in charge of that. It's gonna be a fucking. It's gonna be racist parodies, and from what I've heard, there's racist parodies, but somehow it got fucking funding, 10 million worth of funding, which is a fucking shitload. And so Sis that have been fighting for their autonomy, for their story sovereignty, having power over the story they're telling, but at the same time being like, hey, we've done this for you, we've completed the series, pay us, fuck you, pay us. And New Zealand On Air are now withholding that funding, that last bit of funding, which is like 50,000 or something, which is like that goes in. So Sis, the production team, they have outstanding bills from making this TV series, and now having that income withheld, and then also now we're going to be subjected to an audit because New Zealand Air are like, yeah, you're not going to be fucking doing this to us. It's like,
so that they're definitely blacklisted then.
Well, yeah, so that's going to be, but like, because I know Hanal and the team really well, they don't necessarily need to work in New Zealand. Very much like me, they've got some big contacts overseas. So like,
so they can
if the stuff they've been working on, they could be like, fuck you, New Zealand. Like, it'll be very much like, and then all of a sudden, like, when they do well, then oh, hey, can we fuck you? Don't try and come here and fucking claim my success for your own.
So that's cool because they'll be producing their own stuff and making their own stuff. Is there any other filmmakers out there that's doing that? Because I know there's Danny Elmore. He's doing
Danny does his thing. Stallone.
Yeah.
By Yuasa and his sister Ebba Rose. They're fucking amazing. Like, I love the stuff they do because he just went over to Samoa, with like a camera, like he just did it.
Yeah.
Right? He just went and did it. And sometimes that's all you need. Like, you don't need the permission of the gatekeepers to make your art. Just fucking make it, Will it be easier with the funding that those gatekeepers have? Yeah, for sure. But you don't need their approval, So if you got a story to tell, fucking tell it. By hook, by crook, just find any means necessary to tell it. If you can't get the funding, fucking just do it anyway. It'll just be harder. But sometimes, learning how to make things the hard way, makes you a better storyteller overall because you've understood how hard it can be, and you understand the trials and tribulations of doing it on your own, and that creates resilience, as you said, and not necessarily like full self-sufficiency, but like you can understand, what, I could do this on my own if I need to, and a bit more confidence in your own skills. So but no, even with Stallone and I think I know Danny, but I don't know like of his work stuff too much outside of what I've seen. But so I don't know how his production stuff worked. But like with the Sis team, Culture Factory Productions, they've just pretty much fucking massive middle finger to New Zealand on there and whatnot. And I know Stallone and that they, I guess, thanks to his success of him just doing things on his own, like I know he deals with some of the New Zealand Air stuff and whatnot, and but like the Sis team, like they're very much militant. Not militant in like the bad way, but militant in like standing up for what they believe in, standing up for what they believe is right, and standing up for indigenous stories told by indigenous people. You look at Avatar 2. I'm not watching that shit because I fucking hated the first one. Because the first one was just so fucking ridiculously dumb.
I think they said it was Dances with Wolves in space.
Yeah, and a bit of Ferngully as well. But like,
second one's like a 3-hour long screensaver.
I heard that was just the same movie as the first one, just with Water Tribe. But like, just the whole idea, like white saviorism, like just so tired of it. The native people needed this white disabled man, like, so it was ableist as well as racist. Like, it was like, this disabled man, his life isn't great because he's disabled, so he's going to live as this blue alien, and he's going to be the one to save the native blue aliens. So like he literally puts on blue face, like to be like them, and I was like, fuck, like he literally appropriates their body and their culture. It's like, it's fucking Get Out. Like he implanted his fucking brain in a black body. Like it's fucking Get Out.
And that's interesting because if you never knew anything that was wrong with these movies, Avatar, you watch Get Out, that's telling you what's wrong with these movies.
And like you have James Cameron who's acting like he's a champion for indigenous rights and shit. Very much like Get Out. I voted for Obama twice. Kind of thing. So but like in the end, he just took indigenous cultures, created his own one, and then like surface level kind of representation, and essentially it was cultural appropriation. And it's funny too because one of the things I've seen is white people trying to clap back saying, but it's not racist because they're blue, and that's and that's how whiteness works. Where you
out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, where it's like you're only concerned about the color and not the actual culture. Like you're like, yeah, that's how it works. That's how whitewashing works. It's like, I don't see color, that kind of stuff. It's like, no, it's more than just them being blue, but you have to fixate on the color blue because to you that's all that matters. The blue, the skin, not the actual culture. Like, so that's how whitewashing works, but this time it's blue. Smurf washing. But
and that's why I said out of sight, out of mind, because that's their mentality.
Yeah.
Like, if people in Rimmer and say Helens don't see what goes on anywhere else, they're just, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
But like, it's like,
and that was, I saw that post you had with Luxon's comment about the garage.
Yeah.
That is the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, you see that comment, not understanding, not knowing.
Yeah. And then he was just like, oh no, that was taken out of context. That was like from a real conversation I heard. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, let's talk about the drug users in boardrooms. Because we all know those motherfuckers bump cocaine.
Exactly.
the lawyers, the accountants, all those rich motherfuckers, they bump cocaine like it's nothing, like it's candy. Let's talk about that. Those are stories I've heard, so I guess that applies to all of them.
Yeah.
And then, it's taken out of context. Oh, it's just I heard the story. It's like fucking hell, And it's funny too because I've seen some of like right wing motherfuckers comment on that article, especially when Opito Williams, William Seo shared it on his Twitter. They jump in and they're like, he's 41. He's not exactly a young man. It's like, did you fucking read the article? It says that I wanted to show what's possible out of South Auckland garages so that the young people can be inspired. I wasn't saying I was a young person in the fucking garage.
Yeah.
Once you join gang, I was like, if the idea is that, you know, sitting in the garage makes you more susceptible to gang influences, it's like, well, this is what, you know, happens. Like, there's millions of other fucking stories of South Auckland creatives fucking killing it in their garages. I'm not an exception.
Businesses started in garages.
Yeah, I'm not an exception to the fucking rule. There's so many of us, you know. It's just the Disney name drop just means fucking a shitload in this day and age. So, like, you know, so obviously that gets the spotlight. But yeah, so like the whole Avatar thing, like, it's just so tiring because, like, the first Avatar film, it's like the highest grossing film, right? But it left like zero impact on pop culture. Like, it made money, but no one fucking cares for it. No one's walking around going, "Oh, can you speak Navi? Oh, do you know any names of the characters from Avatar? Can you name a character?"
No.
Yeah,
But you're right, man. You're right.
it's like it left zero fucking impact on pop culture. It was all spectacle and no substance, and that's what this one sounds like. But this time, even more racism. Like, fuck, you know.
I think they're almost up to 3 billion now worldwide. It's 2.9 billion. But
Yeah.
I put that to there's nothing else to watch. You know,
Well, yeah, it's when people buy into it's
whole 3D thing. And
it's like fucking NFTs. It's the NFTs of fucking films, you know. For a short while, it made a lot of money, but did jack shit. In the whole zeitgeist.
I saw Todd McFarlane put all his toys. I think he's got a contract to do the
Yeah,
toys.
McFarlane toys do the Avatar toys.
Yeah.
They're fucking horrible. It's weird because, like, the McFarlane toys, especially like you see it with the DC ones, and even the My Hero Academia and like the Avatar, the Last Airbender ones. There's something about them. They lack soul. Weirdly enough, like to kind of apply that to like an action figure. There's just something missing, and like they look pretty, like there's some really cool sculpts, but as someone that collects action figures, like I'm never interested in buying them because it's lacking something. Like, it's just lacking, yes, the soul, the heart of an action figure. Like, it looks pretty, but it doesn't. It's fucking Avatar. It looks pretty, but it lacks substance. Like, it lacks the heart of the character. You know, it's like, oh, that's a cool sculpt, but it doesn't feel like the character. It just feels empty. Like, it feels like a toy. Like, that's what I mean.
That probably speaks to the movie itself.
Yeah. So I'm not watching Avatar 2. Luckily, when I watched Avatar, the one time I did watch Avatar at IMAX in 3D, I didn't pay for it. So I was like, fuck, I'm so glad I've never had to pay a single fucking dollar to watch James Cameron. And
to go to his farm down in Wellington.
And oh fuck, I was about to say something offensive too. Like, more than swear words, I was about to say something offensive, but then I realized, fucking check. Sometimes I check myself because, you know, it's growth, but
it's confusing to me why that movie's made so much money.
Yeah, because it was the 3D, like the graphics, the 3D and stuff, like that was like new technology and amazing technology too. But that's all there was. Like, fuck, like, you know, do people like, yeah, as I said, do people like, you go, hey, can you name a character from Avatar? You know, and like the substance they were fighting over in the first film, unobtainium. Like, how fucking ridiculous of a name is that? Unobtainium. Fuck, like that's like a second grader coming up with some dumb shit that just is like, hey, thanks, Captain Obvious.
Should
like,
be not obtainium.
Don't
obtain.
And so yeah, and then also seeing old comments from James Cameron about why he made Avatar. It was like, you see it throughout the Avatar film. So he was inspired by the Lakota people, Native Americans, indigenous people of America, one of the tribes, Lakota. And he was talking about like how what if they were able to go back in time or go forward in time and see how their people have like the highest rate of suicide in the country at the time. I'm not sure if that's changed in America. They would fight harder. I'm like, what the fuck? Like there are I guess colonial apologists who talk about how if these people didn't want to be conquered, they should have fought harder. And it's like genocide was a thing that came along with the colonizers. Were there conflicts between indigenous people? Yeah. In islands, there were conflicts, but we went out to totally make one race extinct, one island extinct. We understood that there was a thing, but like the white people came along and were like, hey, we want that. We are trying to wipe all of you out. We don't want any of you here.
Yeah.
Like that concept of mass genocide came with the colonizers and the greed they had for the resources. And I'm not a religious guy. I'm an atheist, to be honest. But like, there's that quote about how the white man came and built his heaven on your land while pointed yours to the sky. And religion, particularly Christianity and white man's version of Christianity, which is a totally different brand, was just another tool of colonization. It was used to subjugate and placate our people so they fall in line. And then they got caught up in all of that they forgot their own gods, forgot their own beliefs, forgot their own religions, and then kind of became subjects of the white man, became subjects of the white life. And so that's why I've a big problem with Christianity in particular.
But it makes sense, because missionaries came first.
Yeah.
To butter them up.
Yeah.
And then the colonizers came after.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh yeah, God says you should give this to us. Like that kind of thing. And like and that's why it's so interesting to me, because our people are like diehard, like tuta oti, like Christians. And I'm like, fuck.
How did that happen?
It's it's like and like I understand the communal aspects of religion adhere to our communal aspects of our village life, and so I can see how that shift can occur. But like just the way our people go so hard for white Jesus, like it's like I'm just like fuck, like it's
you're right about that, because what I learned was that how it started was that it's just small things.
Yeah.
First they introduced things that we saw that was a better tool.
Yeah.
So we thought, man, these people are really good. They're giving us better tools to use.
Yeah.
Making our life easier. So now we trust them. And then we'll trust what they say. And it's not an overnight thing.
It's gradual.
Yeah, it's
right?
gradual.
Just slow. It's like a virus. It just slowly, cancer just slowly builds and takes over the resources. So, have you seen the Angry Birds film?
What's that?
Angry Birds. Angry Birds. You remember the game?
I know the game.
There was the animated film.
Oh, no.
I know there's a part 2. I haven't seen part 2, but so I remember. If you want to learn about colonization, watch Angry Birds.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna watch it now.
I remember. It was like my niece's birthday, and my cousin was like, "Oh yeah, I booked out for theater, and then we'll go watch Angry Birds." And I'm sitting there. I'm like, "Holy fuck! This is a colonization film for kids, and they don't understand it." So essentially, you have the Angry Birds, or there's one Angry Bird, but like in the living on an island of birds, everyone's all hunky dory, living their best life, wanting for nothing, just everything is there on the island, happy, peaceful life. And then the ship comes along, and these pigs present to them new technology in exchange for their eggs. And so the birds kind of adopt these new technologies. The pigs take the eggs, and the pigs, this is like colonization and stolen generation stuff. Where like
right, the eggs generation.
I was like, but like the pigs are gonna use those eggs to cook. They're gonna use it for food, like scrambled eggs and stuff. But I was just like, holy fuck! Like this is a great analogy for colonization that people don't understand. like honestly, an island that is wanting for nothing gets presented with new shiny toys from these strange people who want something from them, want resources from them. And in doing so, they've kind of taken away, I guess, Tonga. Like, I guess, like, as you say, like the next generation. And like, if those eggs were eaten and taken by the pigs, then there's no new generation of birds to populate the country, and then they'll die out. And then maybe the pigs will come back and take over the island. But it was just really interesting just to sit there realizing, oh, fuck, this is colonization. There's a cartoon for kids. This is fucking awesome. So yeah,
So what do you think the intention was? Was that the exact intention to?
I feel like
show the kids what really happened in real life.
I feel like it was semi-unintentional. Maybe they were like, hey, it would be like this, but not realizing how much of an allegory it was for colonization.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it was like unintentionally, like explicitly, like colonization. I think they kind of had that vibe, like colonization, but not realizing that it very much was a really great allegory for colonization. So yeah, so I that was one of those things that I just cracked up in the theater. I was like, oh fuck this! So it made me enjoy the film even more.
Yeah.
But then I didn't watch Angry Birds 2 because I feel like nothing's going to beat Angry Birds 1. And then when I saw that like they were working with the pigs, I'm like, fuck no, I'm not watching it. I'm not watching part 2. So yeah, it's little things like that. But that's why I've never been a big fan of religion. But again, I understand the communal aspects and how the community of churches can do good things. It's just what we believe in and who we believe in, as in white Jesus, has meant that we've had to forego our own gods, our own beliefs, even our own cultural practices. Because pre-colonization, fa'afafine, third gender, non-binary people, we all have them in our families, right? Not a single Samoan or Pacifica family has zero fa'afafine in their lives. It's fucking impossible.
Yeah.
Right? But the way we treat them, or the way the religious zealots treat them, is fucking disgusting. The homophobia, the transphobia, that's learned. That's not part of our DNA. Those people are our ainga. Those are our family. That should come, like they talk about family over everything. I fucking hate seeing Christian people use FOE, family over everything, because it's not family over everything.
FOE, is that the abbreviation?
Yeah, foe. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, foe, because you're the enemy of the people. But family over everything. But it's like, but when it comes down to it, they will turn their back on their fa'afafine family, turn their back on their gay family, because white God told them that it's an abomination. And I was like, well, fuck you. So yeah, that's again, there's so many things that I just can't, I'm not comfortable with when it comes to that religion. And so that's why I decided to be atheist. That's why I decided to believe in myself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Have you read Homo Sapiens? The book Sapiens by Yuval Harvey?
No.
He's a Jewish atheist, and he wrote this book called Sapiens. It's about the history of humanity, and because he's a historian.
Yeah.
At the university, and it's a really interesting book because he tells a story of human beings from when what's the other, there's Homo sapiens and what's the other one? Neanderthal.
Yeah.
When the Neanderthal gets extinct and then the Homo sapiens
took over. Yeah.
They carry on. So it starts from them until the book starts from there till now. And it's interesting. He talks about how religion starts and why, and how the stories from religion. It's all about control. So it's about he talks about what you've said about control. Because if you're in the village and you're the father and you have kids and then the family grows, there's a certain number where you can't
control the populace.
And he says it's 100. So when it got past 100, then they had to find a way to not control, but make sure everyone
unites everyone around
it. Yeah. So they invent religion.
Yeah.
So to help do that, so they tell stories. So if you believe this, everyone believes the same story, then you're attached to something.
Yeah.
And you go from there. So it talks about that, but it's very interesting there. Like it talks about how the Romans, first of all, they had all these different gods like Zeus and all that, and then when they started Christianity, when they had all these gods, when they conquered the country, they actually took their gods and put them in with them.
Yeah.
So it's integrate.
Yeah.
Integrate their gods with their gods, so they can conquer these people.
Yeah.
So they conquer their beliefs as well. If we leave your God, if we take your God, then you come to us. Yeah. Sort of thing.
And like funny enough that you bring that up. With Christmas coming up.
Yeah.
Christmas. The what we know as Christmas was a pagan ritual.
Yeah.
Winter solstice. And so like again, that's one of those assimilations of like taking another religion's beliefs and then like Easter as well. That's all about the spring time and also new life. Which you look at it, okay, that ties in
with the season.
With Jesus coming back to life. So so that kind of stuff. There's tons of that. The English language is a fucking Frankenstein of like tons of other languages. So when white people are like, speak English, you're like, fucking hell, what is English? Are you old English? Or are you talking about like the English that uses French words and Italian words and all these other Japanese words and all this other shit that they just fucking took along the way, they pillaged from, so it's so that's that shit's always crack up. But it's interesting, and as I said, like those are some of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of religion, especially religion that's used by people to prop themselves up into power and to create hatred. It's like, fuck, do these people, like, they talk about the Bible and all this shit, but like they always bring up like fucking Bible verses that that have been taken out of context to back up their bigotry. But I'm like, fuck, how about all the other stuff? Like Jesus never talked about gay people. He didn't give a fuck about gay people according to the Bible. But at the same time, it's like people talk about the Bible being the word of God. You have people like Israel Folau, who fucking uses the Bible to uphold his bigotry. And then you're like, but in the Bible it says fucking don't eat pork, don't fucking have tattoos. Like what? How the fuck do you if this is the word of God and the word of God is fucking, concrete and unwielding, why the fuck do you eat shellfish, pork, fucking have tattoos? Why do you wear mixed fibers? Like there's so much of that shit that's just so hypocritical because again, they only take the things that that they prop up their hatred, their bigotry, but then it's like you read deeper and like you yourself are a fucking sinner. You're a fucking, am I not I guess I'm not a sinner because I don't have any fucking tattoos on me yet. But, but then I guess I'm also a non-believer, so I guess I am a sinner, But also that very much like the white savior complex, the Christian savior complex, where people feel like it's their duty to save others. But like, it's not like saving others because you want to save others. It's saving others for a fucking ego boost. Like it makes people feel special. It makes them feel special. I'm the one that's going to save you. And I'm going to be like, I'm going to convert you. I'm going to save you. And like, fuck you.
I try to avoid those people.
Yeah, you do you, I do me. Like, fuck. Yeah. I do guys, I do girls, I don't know, fuck, I do whatever. Like, no, you just fucking, you do you, I do me. Like, what I do, you don't have to fucking worry about. But those people fucking annoy me because it's about ego. It's them saving others is about making them, because they're not thinking about saving others, they're thinking about their rewards in heaven. Yeah. If I save X amount of people, I get to get the best spot in heaven. It's selfish. It's not about others. It's about the rewards and the prosperity gospel. Like, fuck, I hate that shit. The prosperity gospel is another fucking imported ideology from America, where you have like those fucking Billy Grahams and shit.
Oh yeah.
You know, telling people, they've got fucking tons of money, right? And so the poor people that they prey upon, look at them, like very much like look at Trump. He's got heaps of money. I want to be like him. If I give him money, I will get blessed 10 times over. But really, you're just giving him money and he's getting blessed and you're getting left with nothing, right? And it's fucking predatory. It's fucking Brian Tamaki and shit.
Yeah,
right?
he's adopted that sort of model.
Yeah, that's the prosperity gospel where you see them with like all their fucking flash gears, and you think about like for people that fucking go on about the Bible and God and Jesus, do they fucking read? Because Jesus was talking about you go into heaven with nothing. So there's no point in fucking hoarding your wealth. There's no point in getting all of this luxurious shit on earth because you aren't going to be able to take it with you in the afterlife, to heaven. So, fucking give away your shit,
Like Indiana Jones when he picked the Carpenter's cup.
Yeah, which looked like the most basic thing, but like it wasn't about how it looks, it's about what it does, right? Yeah. And so, this prosperity gospel shit that, again, they espouse so much fucking hatred towards, non-believers, LGBTQ plus people, Muslims and stuff like, it's like fucking hell. Like there was nothing in this Bible that created that much hate for other people. These people have used that to, uphold their bigotry, but then at the same time fleece their believers. They've gotten rich off these people's, what they prey on is hope. These people hope for a better life. They see the flash cars, the cool sunnies and all this fucking slick shit, the cool house. And they have hope that could be for them too if they believe. And then those predators use that hope, use that belief to fleece them of their money. And it's just like, and so that stuff, like, I think at one point Christianity and religion, or like Christianity, more Christianity had a purpose, but now it's been corrupted so much and abused so much that like now it's just like, I don't know what the fuck it is.
If I think about it, it's corrupted, but then can't you tell when different versions of Christianity pop up? It's like, because it's old fashioned thing, right? Oh, I don't agree with this part of this, so I want to make my own religion now.
There's tons of and you see it even now, like you see it with our island churches, right? There's some fucking drama, and then one of the ministers like, I'm going to take my people and go over here and create my own church, and so it doesn't become. It's not about the church or about worshiping. It's about the politics. Right. It's about the power.
That's right.
And like people always think that you need. It's like and again, because I'm not religious, I'm like I don't care. But you don't have to go to church. You don't like Jesus never really cared for the fucking big temple shit, the fancy churches, the $1 million churches that get fucking built, the big churches. Like he just cared about your worship and your humility and your goodness of character. It wasn't about how fancy your shit was that you got to pray in. You look at the Muslims who pray twice a day, and they do have their mosques and stuff where you can pray, but wherever you are, you pray.
Yeah. You think you have to point somewhere.
Yeah, there's a certain direction you pray towards, right? Where the sun is. But, for them, it doesn't matter where you are. You still, kind of humble yourself towards your deity of choice. Like, and so I'm like, yeah, I can understand that. That's, again, like, not a big fan of religion, but I can understand why you would do that, and that feels more genuine to me than just going, I just go to church on Sundays and I go clubbing on Saturday night, going to and then I pray to God, and it's like I go to the big church and then we all do our fucking hallelujah concert bullshit. It's like fucking a big day out, but and like a lot of that stuff is very, again, it's rock concert, it's charisma heavy. And with charisma, you can, there's good and bad charisma. And the charisma that's used in those arenas is usually of the bad kind where you're fleecing people. And that's where I talk about integrity. Because every time they talk, they're talking shit.
Yeah.
But again, the people who have hope, The people who are looking for guidance buy into it. Very much like what I talked about earlier on about
because they're most vulnerable.
Yeah, the most vulnerable, and that's why I fucking hate about. They prey on those people. Very much like what I was talking about earlier on about the podcast and that kind of toxic masculinity stuff, where like some people just feel disenfranchised, feel like they're unempowered, and so they buy into like these guys who are complaining about not having power anymore and how the world's changed and how the world's against them, because it's never about you. You're never at fault. It's about other people. And then that's what you see with those religions, where it's the other people who are the problem. We are pious. We are the true believers. We can do no wrong. Those people, I think, and it's like, motherfuckers, Jesus wasn't talking about that shit in the Bible. It wasn't us and them. He was all for loving the poor, the unbelievers, the sick, stuff like that. But like these people are like, us and them. If you don't believe, you're a sinner and you should go to hell, and I will do everything I can to make sure you do it. And like, it's not your job to judge. If you're that religious, it's not your job to judge. And people will use that as like, oh, and only God can judge me. But like, you motherfuckers are judging people every day. With your hateful rhetoric, with your bigotry, so like, get fucked, and like, some of the people that you hate are your own family, so family over everything, get fucked. Family over some things, family over everything except homosexuality and transgender and like dumb shit like that. You're like, fuck, so it's just one of those things that I've just seen, and it just annoys the fuck out of me.
I think with you, what you don't believe or believe, you said you're atheist, but I think what you realize when you're going through that process, you're now like what this book, Sapiens, the guy that wrote this book, he's now on the outside looking in, and figuring out, well, that's weird. Oh, that's weird too. Why are you doing that? Why shouldn't you do this? And you're doing that now. Yeah, and that gives you that open-mindedness. And if you think about what religion is in the first place, it's a whole lot of stories, right? Yeah. It's the power of storytelling. Exactly. And I think because you've got the storytelling mentality, you've been around stories all your life with comic books and what you're doing now, like stories run through you. Yeah. So you've got the ability to recognize the underlying story on anything. Yeah. Like when we were talking about these movies, like The Dark Knight, like I never took it that way, but you broke it down like that's your take on it, and it makes sense because you understand stories. You understand, like if you're gonna make a story, you understand where it comes from. Yeah, that kind of thing. And I think it all connects with the religion thing. It's a story. You understand story, so you know that it's bullshit or not bullshit, or bullshit or this is wrong, this is right. It's like unlocking the Matrix, right? Like that's a good way of saying it, man. When you start seeing the binary code, like, this is bullshit. But it's a good thing, but also a bad thing because again, it kind of detaches you from the story sometimes because you can see where it's going to go, and then it dulls you and your enjoyment of the story. But it connects to what you said in the beginning of this podcast. You said that it's good to know, when you talked about how empathy. Yeah, you have to know empathy because then it'll open you to more doors that your periphery, goes opening. Oh, you can bring this in and you can change the way you think. Yeah, because now you've got this to think about. See, I think that's what that's done for you. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like empathy, not just for other people, but the world around you. Just understanding your surroundings. That's a key skill that you can't really learn. Yeah. Like, you can't go, I'm going to sit down and be empathetic now. Like, you have to experience it to really understand it. And or just know stories. Yeah. Or just read a lot of stories. Yeah. See a lot of stories, understand all these stories. And it's basically like, because, people love anime, and that's right, because, like, people obviously use the term anime for Japanese-style cartoons, but the actual term is a transliteration of animation, and the Japanese use it for anything animated. It's just the white people that have kind of taken them like, oh, anime is Japanese, but like the Japanese are like, anime is everything. Like, but like, I remember talking to some people about anime, and my all-time favorite anime is a Japanese cartoon, I guess, series is Full Metal Alchemist. And
right from the get-go, I just really identified with Full Metal Alchemist. And it's funny looking at it from an, I guess, indigenous perspective. Full Metal Alchemist, the underlying philosophy of the series is the notion of equivalent exchange, which is you take what you give, reciprocity. And when you think of it with like an indigenous lens or even Samoan lens, the act of reciprocity is fa'aloalo, right? You give and you take. And when you look at alo, which is row, fa'a, to row, like in the manner of rowing, and you go alo, rowing back and forth. Like it explains the concept, rowing back and forth. You give, you take. You give, you take. So Full Metal Alchemist, right from the get-go, I was like, fuck, I totally understand it. That's how I live my life. Equivalent exchange. I take what I give. I try and put good out into the world. I try and make a change because I'm not all about the taking life. Like if I succeed, I want to share in that success with others. And so that's why I love Full Metal Alchemist, as well as being like a dope story. Like just the underlying philosophy of it, equivalent exchange. You take what you give. Like that's how you should be living a very karma like life. But like that's how I operate, is of alo, of reciprocity, of equivalent exchange. And like it took me a long time to like, because everyone loved Naruto, and like I was familiar with Naruto, and I didn't mind it, but I couldn't spend the time to watch all of it. But recently, I watched like from Pain versus Jiraiya, because I was like, I just want to watch the cool stuff. So I started watching it, and I watched it to the end. And luckily, with all the episodes out, I skipped all the fillers and just watched all the cool shit. And then I understood why people love it and why I thought it was so fucking amazing. So when you look at Naruto and you look at Sasuke, you have a dichotomy of beliefs. You had one person who lived with a family, which was taken away from him tragically, which in Sasuke, he had a family. That family is taken away from him. And so he grows up almost like having it all, but losing it. And so his goals were very singular. Like he was about obtaining power through his own means for himself. You have Naruto, who grew up with no family because his parents passed away. So he grew up an outsider with nothing, right? But even though he grew up with nothing, he felt connected to the village of the Hidden Leaf, the people of Hidden Leaf. And he would always try his best to be accepted, to be part of those people. And like, obviously he'd do it over the top and people would think he's annoying and shit. But he, even in the subconscious level, he understood the value in community. And when you watch their journeys throughout the whole series, Sasuke is trying to do things on his own. He's got a team, but he's very much about like, I'm trying to build power on my own esteem. And Naruto, as powerful as Naruto is, he still relies on the village, on the community. So his power is with people. And when you look at Indra and Ashra, the original twins, that they kind of explain where the kind of chakra comes from, right? Indra and Ashra, Indra didn't have any powers. Ashra was like kind of like, yeah, I've got all the powers. I can do all of this cool shit. And so they were set out on the journey to help people and use their powers. Ashra comes back early and he like uses powers and he solved the problem for them. Indra comes later, but Indra worked with the people to solve the problem they had. And in doing so, he unlocked his powers. And so I was like, fuck, this is awesome. And so Naruto and Sasuke were trying to be the most powerful people they can be, but one was trying to do it on his own. The other, as powerful as he was on his own, did it with people. And it was Naruto and the people around him, the people that he lifted up, the people who lifted him up, that succeeded and then turned Sasuke around. When Sasuke realized that's what he needed to do to be powerful. The power wasn't in how much chakra and the jutsu you can have. The power was in the people. And once I realized that, I was like, fuck, this is amazing. I can see why people love it. And I don't even know if people even thought of it that way. But like that's how I watched it, like just watching it. Oh fuck yeah, okay, I could get behind this because I'm about the community. I'm about the power you get with people. And that should be how we operate. That's how our village mentality should be about. We're all in this together. And that's when we're the strongest.
But New Zealand, we've got a villain here. It's called Tall Poppy Syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. So, so just kind of, again, looking at it with more experienced eyes and like understanding like the kind of underlying philosophy of it, I was like, fuck yeah, this is so much cooler than I gave it credit for.
Yeah.
And so like hats off to all you Naruto fans who like were watching it as it came out. Like I can understand now why people absolutely love it. Just because, I
love that.
Yeah, and like Dragon Ball, like obviously I loved Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball when I was a kid, like younger, and because I was like, oh, this is exciting. Now that I watch, I fucking hate it. like there are moments like Piccolo's the coolest. Like Piccolo is like the kind of uncle I wish I could be. Like the fucking cool uncle that he tries to be tough, but like he's a big softie. And he fucking cares about people. And he's there for people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no matter how much he complains, he's there for people. But like, overall, like, Dragon Ball is just about strength. Being stronger than other people. And I'm not interested in that. Like,
right. Yeah.
It's like, I gotta be stronger than you. And then, like, I'm the strongest. And then someone stronger comes along and now I'm gonna be stronger, and it's like, it
sounds like a Zack Snyder.
Yeah, it's very, like, there are some cool stuff that happens, but overall, it's like I just don't care for that. Like, I don't care about being stronger than other people. I care about working with others. Like that's, and
that's why you like the Alchemist.
Yeah, I feel like Full Metal Alchemist. Just the whole like, cause like Edward Elric, and his brother Alphonse, tried to bring their mother back from the dead, and then they fuck up and like. And Edward always has it hanging over him. He's missing an arm, he's missing a leg. His brother's soul is on the other side, so he had to infuse his brother's body's on the other side, like purgatory. So he managed to save his brother's soul into a suit of armor. So like walking around with that always a reminder of your fuck up. Like that's a cool thing, especially for like a young dude like Edward Elric isn't old. So like they fucked up when they were kids and all this kind of stuff, and you have the seven sins and stuff and the homunculi as well, like the subject of like what is it to be human, is it the soul, does the soul make you human, or does the soul kind of thing, and all kinds of things very philosophy heavy, and that's why Full Metal Alchemist is my all-time favorite. But it's again that lens, of a storyteller, just breaking things down about, and that's what you do when you tell stories, is you're figuring out what is the underlying philosophy of the story that you're telling, and
the way it relates.
And the way it relates to people, regardless of like how fantastical you can make everything. Like, you could come up with like this fucking crazy idea. It all comes down to the universal truth of the experience of those characters. You can dress it up as pretty as you want, but as long as people can relate, then there's no limit to what kind of story you take. You can tell it's about the relationship, and the resonance of the story, of the universal theme that with the audience, and that's what makes stories. It's not the cool shit and stuff. It's the heart of the story.
It's kind of like what. You remind me of why I watch and I'm a big fan of now, Yellowstone.
Right.
Because before I watched Yellowstone, like I knew it was on, but I never watched it. And so, my friends were saying, you should watch Yellowstone, man, it's good. And like, oh, okay. And then my family was like, you should watch Yellowstone. And other people, you should watch Yellowstone. But
I haven't watched it yet. Like people have talked about it, but
but these are islanders that are saying it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, these islanders love Yellowstone. Why? And like, okay, I was trying to watch it. So I watched it. And it's good, man. I was a fan straight away, and I just kept watching. But always in my head, why do Islanders like this? And I know why now. Because there's a story about these cowboys living in America on the ranch, doing their thing. The living off the land, I think that resonates with Samoans and Islanders because
it's it's an island life, right?
Island life. Island life. These white guys, cowboys, living the island lifestyle on the ranch. In America, in the middle of nowhere, doing their thing like with the cattle, with the sheep. Well, not sheep, the cattle and all that, and just the hard life they live. Like if there's argument, they have to fight.
Yeah,
and have to beat each other up, kind of thing. It's that masculinity, but we can understand being Islanders.
Yeah,
it's like kind of like living on the islands. That sort of mentality. It's like a hard life kind of thing, and that's why I think it resonates to Islanders. That's why we like.
Oh, okay, I've heard people talk about this stuff, but I haven't gone around to watching it.
But I think that's the same thing when you're talking about like how stories can have to relate. You can have all sorts of things. But the essence of it, we can recognize it.
That's what connects the audience.
Yeah, and then sometimes we don't even know why we like it. Like, why do I like this movie? Because it's cool, but we're not realizing, it's the story.
There was something in that story that really connected with you.
And I think you've got that gift to know what that is. So that's why I ask you, like, with all your experiences, you're probably a guy that's in line to create something for everyone to enjoy, like create something from scratch, like you're a storyteller. Like, what can you do? It's like you can almost write a screenplay.
That's definitely, I talked about like I don't give a fuck about the film and television industry, but I have written a first draft for a short film.
Or graphic novel,
I fucking do graphic novels.
Yeah,
so
graphic novels. Because that's the thing Hollywood's doing there. Making graphic novels, making them into movies.
But so I've written a first draft for a screenplay for a short film, and when I have the time, I am looking at maybe doing live action directing. On try my hand at that and see how we go with that, because it just adds more strings to my bow in terms of like what I can do as a storyteller. And like now that I'm a little older and I'm a little bit more experienced, like I still love to call myself a comic artist, but I've realized now I'm all about telling stories, regardless of the medium. It's about telling stories. That's my key. That's my key goal. Really, is telling stories. And now I'm trying to figure out new ways to tell stories outside of what I used to do, or what I'm usually doing. And then this Disney job that's allowing me to practice that.
And look at other avenues.
Yeah, as
other
well as
mediums there, because that is a different medium.
Yeah.
So you're actually testing yourself, and I can do that.
Yeah.
What else can I do?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's, it's all about the level up, right? It's about complacency only happens when you don't push yourself. Because in my experience, all the good shit's just beyond your comfort zone. Like you constantly have to be pushing yourself in order to challenge yourself, and challenge comes with, reward. Whether you succeed or not, there's still a reward at the end of giving a challenge a go. Because if you succeed, you get to do, you've leveled up, you get to do some cool shit. If you don't succeed, if you fail, you've still learned something. So regardless, there's progress in success or failure. There's still progress. The only time you don't progress is when you don't take that step. You're still stuck in that same place where where you feel like I'm good. I don't need to push myself. That's when complacency sets in. So constantly challenging myself is what keeps it fresh, keeps it exciting. As I say, because I like to do things when I feel like them. I like to ride the wave. And that mentality allows me to go, fuck, let's give this a go. Let's see where this takes me. What's the best that can happen, right? So, for me, it's if you're not challenging yourself, you're not progressing. And being an artist, or I guess in general, just anything in general that you commit time to improve on, it's all about self-improvement, gradual self-improvement. Everything you do to better yourself, is for the better. So, pushing yourself, challenging yourself allows you to grow as a person, allows you to learn, and, we can't be fiapoko. We don't know it all, and even if you know it all, you haven't done it all, right? So, you've got to be open to new experiences, new challenges to really grow and expand your horizons, your mentality, your philosophies, your viewpoints. The empathy thing, right? That empathy, again, allows you to be open to those challenges because you understand how they can, help you, rather than shutting yourself off from those scary decisions you have to make. Because, when regardless of what you pursue, there is no risk-free way to make your dreams come true. Like, you can't play it safe. And if you play it safe for too long, when it comes to time to actually take a risk, because there will be a time where you have to take a risk, that risk you take now becomes this huge, almost insurmountable obstacle. And then your mind's like, fuck, I can't do that. And so it becomes this mental block. And when you should be thinking of the risks you take throughout your endeavors, creative or otherwise, as like a rung on the ladder. In order to get to the top, you need to keep taking risks and adding another rung to that ladder so you can climb up to where you need to. If you don't take those constant risks, the gap between the rungs becomes wider, which makes it harder for you to climb. And so you've got to be constantly pushing yourself to add rungs to your ladder to climb up to where you need to be. So that's how I view it. Just constantly taking risks. And to be honest, the biggest risk I ever took was pursuing comics as a career. And because that paid off, everything else is easy shit. So
you started at a time where it was not known.
Well, yeah, exactly. There was no defined path. You can't be like, if I go do this, and this, I will be successful as a comic artist. It's like, you just fucking make it up as you go. And that's what I did. I just kind of did shit, and it just seemed to work out. And so because that paid off, like, taking risks is just the norm for me. Like, I'm like, fuck, let's do it. And that's why people see all the shit. Like, how the fuck did he just mention? He's like, because I'm like, I just fucking did it because, it's created stronger risk assessment skills, and it's allowed me to understand, like, the risk I took going to America in July, like, that's a monetary risk because I spent a shitload of money. But, like, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm spending a lot of money, but I'm also creating an experience for myself. Yeah. And if I make meetings happen, then fuck, that's even better. But if they don't happen, I would have had that experience of, like, Disneyland, San Diego Comic-Con, Evo, and the experiences I have at those events. So I'm good either way. I would have learned something. And then, but also understanding that risk I was taking was almost a calculated risk, because I was like, if I put myself into a position where I am where they are, that gives me a better chance of meeting with them. But then I also understood they may not want to meet with me, but not giving a fuck about that either. Because in my mind, it's like, what's the best that can happen? Right. And then, meetings fucking happened. So that's kind of like how I view things. I'm not sure if I even talked about that in that last podcast. I can't even remember. I remember fucking blasting CNZ, but I can't remember if I even talked about this stuff.
You probably did. I can't remember.
Yeah, so long ago. Like, episode 30. Like, as I said, that's like 130 something episodes ago.
I think what you're saying, like, I can really relate to that, because when I compare how we started the podcast, like, this is something that that's not even our industry.
Yeah,
I never trained in audio, or video, or anything like that. I work in a totally different place. You know? And I think the opportunities just that occurred from doing this, meeting people, talking to people, it's just opened up all these opportunities to do that.
Yeah,
and what that told me was that if you go in a direction, there's obviously going to be different opportunities.
Yeah,
if I go this way, some more opportunities will come. The point is, like, whether you're going to take it or not. Yeah,
and it's testament to your commitment too. Like, you went from back over the 135 to the other shows that you guys have, like, on your thing. So it's like, there's growth in that, but also platforms and stuff. And that's testament to the hard work you put in, and I guess the belief, like, even when it didn't feel like it at the early stages, you kind of felt like, oh, let's just keep doing it, and this feels cool, like, and then let's ride the wave, and then
right. Riding the wave,
riding the wave, right? So yeah, no, it's really cool to kind of see that you guys are still going strong, and added more more shows and stuff, and more platforms for others to share their opinions. Whether they're good or bad ones is another story, but but yeah, it's been great, and honestly, I to be honest, I talk too much. Like, I fucking talk too much. And I apologize, guys.
Oh, now you're in the right place to do that.
Yeah.
I've never heard a podcast where no one talks.
Yeah. But people in my experience have, know how much of a gamble it is to give me a live mic. Because speaking of integrity, and can often mean I say some things that people won't like to hear, or people will be like, oh fuck, but that's who I am, right? And I'm not going to apologize for that,
and you shouldn't.
No.
And this platform is not about it's about people to have a platform to speak their mind.
Yeah, and even from a young age, as a kid who grew up loving comics, loving drawing, being an outsider, I've always been an outsider, I've always been an outlier, but I know what it's like to not belong. And weirdly enough, I kind of, again, in my older age, I've kind of started identifying certain things about how my life, and I'm like, I realized that despite all the bullying and the teasing and mocking and stuff, because I wasn't the cool kid, I had long hair. Believe it or not, I had long hair as a little kid, and then it just slowly went from my head to my face. But I had long hair as a kid, and I have an interesting name, and so and not being one of the cool kids, I never played kiss and catch, which you think about, that's a really fucking dodgy game. Do not play that game, and that is such a fucking horrible game. But luckily I never played it because I wasn't cool enough. I was too busy drawing and reading comics and shit. But even despite all of that, and all of the nights where it hurt, and I would cry, I was a bit of a suki baba as a kid, I still didn't let that detract me. I feel like I understood that comics was my thing, and I wasn't gonna let anyone stop me from loving it, even if it was popular or not, or people didn't understand it. So I felt like despite all the pain and shit, I learned early on that I wasn't gonna let other people's opinions of me define who I am, and I guess that's what I've kind of held on to throughout. And you ask people that I went to school with, who've known me for a long time since I was a kid, this is all I ever wanted to do. Comics, drawing. It never changed. And so now with this article that came out with stuff, and that, I've just seen people from school being like, yeah, this is what he's always done. I'm not a fucking, I'm not a fucking Transformer or Decepticon. I didn't change. Oh, this is what everyone's doing. That's cool. Things like that. This has been me since day one. And, I'm proof that, I'm proof of what happens when you don't stop drawing, when you don't stop, when you don't stop believing, like the Journey song, but also when you utilize your Samoan stubbornness for good. I was just too stubborn not to do anything else.
See, I was like you when you were young, because I clicked the comics too.
Yep.
And I had always went down to Mark 1 in town and bought comics in there. And I drew as well, but not too much. But I just like reading the stories and all that. And then when I hit intermediate, it was it wasn't cool anymore.
Yeah,
it wasn't cool to talk about movies and I like and read comics. So then I just gave that up. Just play sports and doing other stuff what everyone else was doing. But then it's funny because doing the podcast and having the movie podcast and stuff, now I can talk about these things and it feels cool again. So I've sort of lost the whole 25 years of my life.
Yeah. They kind of
it wasn't cool, now it's cool.
Yeah, the that social chameleon shield you had. You're like, oh, I need to fit in. Yeah, and I was I never felt like I had to do that. like even in high school, I was like, in high school, I was more confident in who I am. Like in terms of like, fuck it, I'm not gonna fucking toe the fucking cool line. I'm just gonna do fucking me. Like that's and
See, I'm a sheep then.
Yeah, you're sheeple. But it's interesting because I think as I said, people who knew me like when I was young, like I guess this doesn't surprise them because this is who I've always been, like in terms of just what I'm doing and even like how I speak. Some of the shit I say, like it's kind of cool to know that it's not like I haven't changed, because obviously there has been change throughout the years that I've been doing this stuff, but like in terms of the integrity, I think is what I talked about. The integrity is there. Like this has always been me. This is how I've always been, rather, and obviously there's growth in character, but the integrity in what I do and who I am has stayed constant. And so I'm again, this is like stuff that you philosophize over as an artist, because as an artist, to be able to create worlds and the artwork you do, you have to explore your own mind, and then creating and exploring your own mind more, you get to understand yourself a little better. So like, speaking of Naruto, some of the people that I talk to say that this is when they go into sage mode. It's just that fucking just all these wise colloquialisms they pull out my ass. They sound cool, but they just put out my ass. But like that's kind of how I've, in my experiences, that's how I've understood myself a little bit better, because I've been creating for so long, telling stories for so long, being able to step into other people, other experiences through the work I create allows me a better understanding of myself. So so that's kind of like, that's why it sounds like I know what I'm talking about, but I don't. I'm just putting out my ass. But yeah,
sure, man. We just did 3.5 hours.
Yeah. Fuck, if you're still listening, like, fuck, get a life, man. Fuck. You don't have to listen to me. Like, fuck. It's like I pity you if you spent 3.5 hours listening to me talk shit. Like it's like, man, go fucking do something. Do something productive. Like, but I appreciate it, man. Like it's been good. It's been a good Talanoa, and weirdly enough, I feel like I'm more comfortable this time around than I was in. No, it's not like I wasn't uncomfortable in episode 30.
I think we were uncomfortable too. We just started and we were just like always nervous every time.
But like I feel like this time around I'm too old to give a shit, really. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna talk real, like in this episode. And so so I'm just like, no fucks given. I'm just gonna fucking.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, but no, I appreciate you giving me that space to just be me, really. So, it's been good. It's been good to catch up. And,
man, it's been good.
Yeah.
Any plans for Christmas?
Just the usual.
With the family and.
Yeah, just family stuff. My mum didn't want to cook, so I booked some lunch at Fortuna, so she doesn't have to worry and whatnot. And then my brother's coming back from LA on Boxing Day, so he was hanging out with me when I was in LA because he was over in America for a bit. So he's coming back on Boxing Day, so it'll be good to catch up with him.
What America doing with the holidays here? Are they going with the New Zealand holiday stats?
With the Disney stuff, we closed from Christmas Eve to January 3rd.
Oh, okay.
But still getting paid. So it was the time off of pay. It's just the same old thing. But it's always good family and stuff. And I don't have any kids of my own, but my nieces and nephews and stuff, I always kind of grab presents for them, and then I swing by their houses on Christmas, and like next year I'll probably have a full grey beard, so I'll definitely look like Santa. Just gotta hide my bald head with a Santa hat, but I just enjoy kind of giving the gifts to my nieces and nephews and catching up with them. That's kind of what I get up to. How about yourself? Would you?
Yeah, I got family stuff on Christmas Day. Gonna go see mum and spend breakfast at my mum's, then I think it's dinner over here.
Yeah.
with the Mrs. family. Yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
So it's the split Christmases now you get.
Yeah. No, so, again, it's going to be, I think I got some family coming over from Perth the next couple of days too. So it'll be good to catch up with them as well. So, it's all about the family, right? That's family over everything.
FOE.
Yeah, FOE, fufu of everything. Just to the Jerome Loy. But no, it's that's cool, man. Like have a great Christmas and Happy New Year and happy holidays, and to everyone that sat through all of that. Like again, have a good Christmas because you deserve it after listening to this 3.5 hours.
Thank you also.
Sweet. Whawhitai te la lava.